Chapter 902. The sword chi gradually condensed in front of his chest. He sat down cross-legged again, and the falling dust heart sutra began to circulate around his body. Just like last time, his consciousness gradually left his body, and he could clearly see the structure of his body. Black and white spirit energy flowed in his body, and soul power was attached to his meridians. The slaughter chi covered every inch of his skin. Muyu's consciousness also condensed into his body. The shadow clone sword appeared in his hand. The shadow clone sword flowed lightly. The moment the sword chi was pushed aside, a sword chi also appeared in his cross-legged body. He continued to circulate the heavenly sword 9 guides. The sword chi in his body also began to flow through his meridians. That strand of sword chi was vast and majestic. Its imposing aura was monstrous and vigorous, and it contained the meaning of endless vitality. Wherever the sword chi went, the black and white spirit energy was not affected at all. On the contrary, the soul power attached to it began to be affected. It was as if it had met its nemesis and constantly avoided the sword chi. The slaughter chi in his body was also forced away by the sword chi and collided with the soul power. The soul power and the slaughter chi seemed to be a natural pair. They kept avoiding the sword chi, escaping from one meridian to another. There was no way they could compete with a vast sword chi. However, Muyu also had no way of expelling them from his body. They had already become a part of his body and could not be separated or destroyed. He pondered for a moment and forced the sword chi to his left arm. He used the sword chi to envelop the slaughter chi and the soul power. Then he suddenly realized that the repelling force of the opening ruins cauldron had disappeared. He could now enter the opening ruins cauldron. Muyu's consciousness gradually returned to his body. He slowly opened his eyes and looked at his left arm. His left arm seemed to be attached to by a filthy power. It was strong and ruthless. However, he felt very relaxed. It was as if he had returned to the time when he was free from the slaughter chi. He was carefree and full of optimism and hope for life. This is the real me. Muyu stood up and stretched his body. The runes of the open ruins cauldron were no longer an obstacle to him. He glanced at Yao Wuji, who was sitting by the side and sighing. Then he walked to Yao Wuji's side. Grandmaster Alchemy, as you wished, I have already been acknowledged by the ruins opening cauldron, Muyu said. Yao Wuji abruptly raised his head. His withered eyes seemed to suddenly light up with hope. Really? Muyu squatted down and extended his right hand. He knocked on the runes beneath his feet. The runes rippled, and his hand entered the opening cauldron without any obstruction. Yao Wuji looked excitedly at Muyu's right hand, his whole body trembling. You did it! You did it! You really did it! Yao Wuji held Muyu's hand tightly. He was crying tears of joy. The Grandmaster said that the opening ruins cauldron can protect the Alchemy Cauldron School. This means that the Alchemy Cauldron School is saved. Brother Deadwood, your spirit in heaven is protecting the Alchemy Cauldron School, isn't it? Muyu thought of Deadwood Daddy. That old man was the most affectionate person, but he didn't like to express himself. This was his home. Even though Deadwood Daddy had once made the Alchemy Cauldron School worthless, Muyu still returned. Back then, Muyu couldn't protect Deadwood Daddy. This time, however, he wanted to protect Deadwood Daddy's home. Grandmaster Alchemy, don't worry. The Alchemy Cauldron School will not be destroyed. Muyu is unwavering. Yao Wuji nodded. Thank you, thank you. Hurry up and enter the opening ruins cauldron. You must learn the array techniques left behind by the Alchemy Array Grandmaster. Only then will we be saved. Muyu was silent for a moment before saying, Great Medicine Master, after I enter the opening ruins cauldron, in order to avoid arousing suspicion, you must leave this place. If you stay here for too long, they might. Yao Wuji stood up and immediately said, I know, I'll leave now. Muyu hesitantly said, Alchemy Grandmaster, just in case, I have to erase your memories. Although the divine soul array they set on you has been removed by me, for your sake and for the sake of others, I have to let you become a controlled person. Yao Wuji was startled. He knew what Muyu was worried about. The divine soul array could secretly control Taoist Yuan to to kill Zhuge Shaosheng. He naturally understood what this array technique meant. Now that the threefold palace ensured Deng Tian thought that he was being controlled. If he did not act like a control person, it would arouse suspicion, and they would use all sorts of methods to force him to tell the truth. Yao Wuji thought of the current situation of the Alchemy Cauldron School. The entire Alchemy Cauldron School was controlled by the threefold palace. Taoist Yundan was forced to give up his position as sect master. Shi Dengtian was about to take control of the entire Alchemy Cauldron School with the help of outsiders. Taoist Yuanda had lost his consciousness because of the Divine Soul Array. The two crossing tribulation stage seniors, Hong Yuan and Hong Yi, were also controlled. The entire Alchemy Cauldron School was about to fall into darkness. As the branch master of the Black Rainbow Peak, he could not do anything. The only thing he could do was to be a controlled person. Yao Wuji took a deep breath, and the expression on his face suddenly became incomparably resolute. Muyu, don't worry. Since they think that they control me, I will not reveal any secrets. Even if I have to kneel in front of them and be humiliated by them, I will welcome them with a smile and listen to their orders like a loyal dog. For you, for senior brother Yundan, for senior uncle Yuanda, for the ancestors of the Alchemy Cauldron School, I can endure humiliation. The threefold palace has deceived us for so long. This time, I want to face everything with a clear mind. Yao Wuji's voice was sonorous and powerful. Without any hesitation, his attitude was resolute. If Muyu erased his memories, he would not know anything and would be kept in the dark like everyone else. But the Alchemy Cauldron School had already fallen to this point. He had no way to save it and could not rely on himself to resist the enemy. Could it be that he had to continue living in a dream like a bystander? Yao Wuji was not resigned to this. He wanted to face everything with a clear mind and face the coming darkness of the Alchemy Cauldron School. Only then would he know what the Alchemy Cauldron School had experienced in the future. Only then would he be able to learn a deeper lesson. He did not want to run away. As long as I can save the Alchemy Cauldron School, I can be a person without dignity. Yao Wuji gritted his teeth and squeezed these words out from between his teeth. Yao Wuji was a very cultured and educated person. This kind of person would not throw away his dignity. But when it came to the survival of the Alchemy Cauldron School, he chose to put down his dignity and be a person under their control. Great Master Yao. Muyu looked at the Great Master Yao's resolute gaze, and a sense of respect arose in his heart. This respectable senior was like a ray of fire for the Alchemy Cauldron School, igniting Muyu's blood. Great Master Yao, your humiliation will not be in vain. In the future, I will avenge you one by one. Muyu did not think about erasing the Great Master Yao's memories. Since this respectable senior had made his choice and wanted to face the reality of the Alchemy Cauldron School with a clear mind, then he should respect the other party. Muyu, I believe in you. I believe that you can obtain the inheritance of the Alchemy Array Immortal and help the Alchemy Cauldron School survive this calamity. For the future of the Alchemy Cauldron School, I will play my role well. The Great Master, Yao, resolutely turned and left this place. His expression was resolute, only leaving behind a resolute and bleak figure. Can he really do it? Be a person under their control? Xiao Shuai asked curiously. Other than Taoist Cloud Core, the Great Master Yao is the most stable person. He knows what he should do at what time. All we can do is think of a way to control the Cauldron of Ruins. The Cauldron of Ruins is very similar to the aura of the Array Hall. I think the key to the Alchemy Cauldron School surviving this crisis is whether we can make the Cauldron of Ruins work like the Array Hall. Muyu looked at the Great Master Yao. He had no reason not to help the Alchemy Cauldron School. Not only was this Deadwood Daddy's home, but it was also protected by a brave and resolute senior like the Great Master Yao. Muyu's sword aura sealed the murderous aura and soul power in his left hand. Xiao Shuai jumped onto Muyu's shoulder. This guy did not have to worry about any restrictions wherever he went. He could come and go as he pleased. Muyu slowly sank into the Cauldron of Ruins. A strange world was reflected in front of him. It was as if he had arrived in a hazy chaos. There was a faint fog around him. The fog looked very ethereal and untouchable, but it was clearly visible. Through the fog, he could see the inner walls of the Cauldron of Ruins. The walls were filled with inscriptions of various sizes. The order of the inscriptions was very mysterious. It seemed to follow some strange law, but it was also very messy. Isn't this? Muyu was very surprised because he had seen these inscriptions before. Back when the Array Rune Stone and the Array Hall were combined, he and the Talisman Sect's Sectmaster, Chong Tianqing, had entered the chaos and seen these inscriptions. Back then, Chong Tianqing had used his own understanding to refine the inscriptions, but Muyu did not refine them. He did not even know what the inscriptions represented. However, Muyu knew how to understand these inscriptions. These inscriptions did not represent any meaning. Their meaning could represent thousands of things, but once the meaning of an inscription was determined, he had to find the meaning of the remaining inscriptions. He came to the cauldron's walls and looked at the inscriptions engraved on the cauldron. His mind was completely captivated. Although the inscriptions were engraved on the cauldron's walls, in Muyu's eyes, they seemed to have a life of their own. Every inscription was like a world. They could represent anything in the world, but once they were given a meaning, the other related inscriptions would change accordingly. All the inscriptions here were related to each other. Different inscriptions were arranged to form strange sentences. However, no matter how the inscriptions were arranged or reorganized, they only had 81 shapes. The 81 inscriptions were arranged in different orders to form the large and small chapters on the cauldron wall. These inscriptions are like scriptures. We can't understand them. If only the big earthworm was here. Xiao Shuai thought of Dragonvine. Chapter 903. Muyu approached the cauldron's wall and looked at the strange inscriptions. He said, "Dragonvine isn't here. Let's try it ourselves." In front of him was a chapter composed of 27 inscriptions. It seemed to be describing a sentence. It was very unique. However, Muyu couldn't read it directly. He had to combine all the inscriptions on the cauldron's wall to deduce the meaning. There were only 81 inscriptions. These 81 inscriptions could be used in different orders to form different meanings. Therefore, Muyu had to use his own method to think about what the 81 inscriptions meant. However, after he settled on a meaning for each of the 81 inscriptions, Muyu was surprised to discover that things were not that simple. The arrangement of the inscriptions had changed, changing the entire sentence. It was as if the inscriptions were deliberately joking with Muyu. Once Muyu defined a meaning for the inscriptions again, the inscriptions would change again. Muyu would have to start from the beginning. That's not right. What's the problem? Muyu had already discovered some clues. The inscriptions here were deliberately disguising themselves. They've even become spirits. Little Shuai said in surprise. But if they aren't interpreted in this way, what should they be interpreted in? Muyu was rather puzzled. All the inscriptions slowly flashed, sometimes big and sometimes small. It was as if they were breathing. Muyu looked at the rhythm of the inscriptions and seemed to understand something. He retreated to the center of the open ruins cauldron and stared at the inscriptions in front of him. Then, he slowly moved his body. Every time he moved, all the inscriptions would quietly change. They would flash and disappear like the bright stars in the sky. I see. Muyu nodded thoughtfully. His eyes flashed with runes as he casually moved a few steps. He deduced in his mind and understood everything. What is it? Why don't I understand? Little Shuai asked curiously. If I want to deliberately interpret these inscriptions, they will change at any time. Every time I change my vision, they will change. It's like I have to follow the footsteps of the inscriptions. Muyu took a step forward and stood in the middle of the Kai Su cauldron. A huge 8 trigrams array pattern appeared under his feet. He was standing in the middle of the 8 trigrams where the black and white yin-yang fishes intersected. Every time I took a step, they changed regularly, as if they were trying to confuse me. But on the other hand, I can also make them change according to my steps. Muyu had already followed the 8 trigrams towards the southwest direction of 8 trigrams. As soon as he moved, the inscriptions followed his movements and changed into a specific state. Everything was relative. The inscriptions seemed to change in order to avoid Muyu's prying. But in fact, once Muyu moved in the direction determined by himself, those inscriptions would change according to the pattern that Muyu wanted to know. Oh, so that's how it is. Because the inscriptions have a total of 81 forms. No matter how we change, they can't escape these 81 forms. Therefore, we can follow this pattern and make them show a specific state at a specific time. Wow, I'm so smart. Little Shuai was enlightened. His little brain was very clever, and he quickly knew what Muyu was thinking. Shouldn't the last 4 words be used on me? Muyu rubbed little Shuai's head and continued to jump towards the west Kanshui of the 8 trigrams. You're not as smart as me. Listen to my commands. Next is northwest Jin Mountain. It's northeast Jinlei. Then the next one is east Lihua. It's southeast Zhe Dui. Will you die if you listen to my commands? Yes. Muyu realized that without the murderous aura around him, he felt very relaxed. He and little Shuai seemed to have returned to the noisy way they used to be. He liked this feeling very much. In fact, it was not certain which direction to go. Muyu could not say that little Shuai had chosen the wrong direction because there were many ways to deduce. However, Muyu needed to deduce according to his own method. As he moved, he discovered a familiar phenomenon. He recalled that when he first entered the Array sect, he went to the Array Hall to climb the stairway to heaven. The stairway to heaven was arranged according to the positions of the 8 trigrams. These inscriptions were actually related to the Array Hall to a certain extent. Could it be that this opening cauldron and the Array Hall really have the same origin? When Muyu first saw the opening cauldron, he discovered its uniqueness. The opening cauldron's aura was vast and boundless. It was filled with righteousness and was ancient. It was the same as when he first saw the Array Hall. The Array Hall's power was very strong. It could even block Bai Jia outside. Thinking back, what kind of person was Bai Jia of the Third Palace? He controlled the cultivation world of the Third Continent. However, he did not enter the Array Hall. He was even chased out of the Array sect by Muyu using the power of the Array Hall. Bai Jia was one of the Array masters of the cultivation world. However, he did not enter the Array Hall. It was not because of the stairway to heaven. It was because he had soul power that was rejected by the Array Hall. Just like when Muyu saved Zhuge Shaosheng and brought everyone back to the Array Hall. The Array Hall also strongly rejected him. If it wasn't for the chaotic yin and yang in his body that made him the master of the Array Hall probably would not have let Muyu in. Then were the Array Hall and the opening cauldron. The Third Continent actually had treasures that the Third Palace could not control. How rare! Muyu suppressed these questions and continued to move on the 8 trigrams formation according to his thoughts. He deduced the inscriptions on the cauldron according to his rules. His heart gradually became clear. The open ruins cauldron was 300 feet tall and had countless inscriptions. The huge 8 trigrams array slowly descended as Muyu deduced the inscriptions from a distance. When he reached the bottom of the open ruins cauldron, all the inscriptions had been engraved in his mind. Muyu, under my guidance, you already know what these inscriptions represent, right? Xiao Shuai asked as he chewed on an apple. You gave me guidance? Muyu laughed and nodded. That's right, that's right. Under your guidance, I've figured it out. Array runes appeared in his eyes. He clasped his hands together, and 81 green inscriptions flew out of his hands. These inscriptions were formed by his array runes. The 81 inscriptions rapidly flew into the air under Muyu's control. These inscriptions were arranged in a special way by Muyu. Every inscription was suffused with a green light and compared with the inscriptions on the cauldron's walls. They resonated with each other. Following that, every inscription duplicated countless similar inscriptions. They began to intertwine and float in midair. From the bottom, it looked like a sky full of stars. It was amazing. Muyu extended his finger, and a golden light that landed on the inscription closest to him. When the green light touched the inscription, it began to refract. It refracted onto another inscription and then refracted again. The green light quickly refracted between the inscriptions created by Muyu. Then, at some point, the green light created by Muyu suddenly refracted onto the inscriptions on the cauldron's walls. Following that, all the inscriptions continuously refracted under the green light. Whether it was the inscriptions created by Muyu or the inscriptions on the cauldron's walls, They were all connected together by Muyu's green light. At this time, Muyu had already sat down cross-legged and began to quickly connect these inscriptions. What Muyu didn't see was that when he began to comprehend these inscriptions, the jade pendant in Muyu's heaven and earth sleeve with the soul anchoring array carved on it flashed with a flowing light. The broken soul in the soul anchoring array suddenly emitted a mysterious aura. Yao Wuji returned to his own Black Rainbow Peak. He stood at the Black Rainbow Peak's lookout pavilion and looked down at the Pill Cauldron sect. He thought about the Pill Cauldron sect and felt an inexplicable emptiness in his heart. Kailai stood not far behind Yao Wuji. He was usually sloppy and didn't care about many things. But this time, he clearly felt that the Pill Cauldron sect was filled with an oppressive atmosphere. This atmosphere made him feel very powerless. "Master, are you okay?" Kailai asked hesitantly. Yao Wuji turned his head and said expressionlessly, "Master is fine. What are you doing here? Why aren't you cultivating?" Yao Wuji's tone was very cold. It was like he was a different person. Kailai felt very unfamiliar. "Master, something like this happened to the Pill Cauldron sect. Shouldn't we do something?" Kailai asked unwillingly. "Do something?" Yao Wuji asked without any emotion. He tried his best to hide the fluctuations in his heart. He also wanted to chase away those outsiders from the Pill Cauldron sect. But his cultivation was only at the spirit-severing stage. He couldn't do anything in front of the Triple Palace. Kailai said with righteous indignation, "Master, sure Deng Tian deceive his master. Shouldn't we bring him to justice? At the very least, we can't let Sure Deng Tian become the sect leader of the Pill Cauldron sect." "Bastard, is senior brother Sure's name something you can call? In the time that I wasn't here, you became disrespectful to your elders?" Yao Wuji said angrily. Kailai was scolded by his master, but he didn't care. He continued to say, "Master, Sure Deng Tian is not fit to be my elder. He actually allied with outsiders and wanted to force the sect leader to give up his position. Such a disgraceful person. Pa." A palm print appeared on Kailai's face. Kailai was stunned. This was the first time he was beaten. The person who hit him was his most respected master. "Why? Master, why did you hit me?" Kailai didn't even touch his face. He just looked at his master, wanted to get an answer from him. Yao Wuji had never hit Kailai. No matter how lazy Kailai was, Yao Wuji would only scold him. He had never taught him a lesson. This was because he understood his disciple's personality. Kailai was a genius, and all geniuses had their own way of cultivation. "The next time I hear you talk about senior brother Sure, I won't just give you a simple slap," Yao Wuji shouted. "But I'm telling the truth." Kailai clenched his fists and turned around. He walked down the mountain. After taking 2 steps, he stopped. "Master, this wasn't your intention, right?" Kailai understood his master. His master wouldn't show any emotion when faced with something like this. Yao Wuji's heart was trembling. That slap on Kailai's face was like a slap on his own heart. But he couldn't say anything. He could only place all his hopes on the person in the Cauldron of Ruins. Go to the Cliff of Reflection to cultivate. You are not allowed to come out before you reach the 4th level of spirit-severing stage. Yao Wuji said sternly. "I won't be a coward." Kailai walked down the mountain silently. Yao Wuji looked at his disciple's back. He had mixed feelings. He hoped that Kailai could stay at the Cliff of Reflection until Muyu came out. Only then would Kailai be safe. But he also understood his disciple's personality. Kailai wasn't someone who would shirk his responsibilities. "Stop! Where are you going?" Yao Wuji knew that Kailai would do something stupid. He had to stop him. Kailai turned around and looked into Yao Wuji's cold and emotionless eyes. He said word by word, "You said it, the Cliff of Reflection." Yao Wuji looked at Kailai's determined face. He knew that Kailai would never go to the Cliff of Reflection. He understood Kailai. "I'll bring you there." Yao Wuji held on to Kailai tightly and brought him up into the sky. They flew past countless mountains, and in a short while, they arrived at the Dan Cauldron sect. This was a tall mountain peak. The peak was steep and tall, and there were cliffs in all directions. There was a cave on the cliffs at regular intervals, and it was a place for disciples who had made mistakes to reflect on their mistakes. Below the cliff of reflection was the Dan imprisoning array. It imprisoned disciples who had committed unforgivable crimes. Withered Tree and Evergreen had been imprisoned here. Yao Wuji brought Kai Lai to the side of an empty cave. He said indifferently, "Go in." Kai Lai gritted his teeth and silently walked into the cave. "Master, you have to be careful. I can't lose you," Kai Lai said softly. He seemed to have sensed something. Yao Wuji's stomach shrank into a ball, but he didn't have any other reaction. He only said coldly, "You don't have to worry about your master." Yao Wuji waved his hand and activated the restrictions on the cave. He sealed the entrance of the cave. He sighed in his heart. Then, he flew up to the top of the mountain. But there was already someone waiting for him at the top of the cliff of reflection. There was a pine tree at the top of the mountain. Beside the pine tree was a stone table and a stone chair. Taoist Yundan sat on the chair and looked at his junior apprentice brother. "Tell me, what happened in the past few days?" Taoist Yundan looked haggard. His hair was already white. He looked very tired. Taoist Yuan's death. Taoist Hong Yuan and Taoist Hong, he wanted him to step down. Sure, Deng Tian was eyeing him covetously. The only person he could trust in the Dan Cauldron sect was Yao Wuji. "I've already said what I need to say." Yao Wuji's tone was indifferent. He looked at his senior apprentice brother like a stranger. He didn't show his emotions. Taoist Yun Dan shook his head. "We grew up together. As your senior apprentice brother, I know all of you very well. I feel that you're hiding something from me." Yao Wuji sneered. "No? What makes you think you know me?" Taoist Yun Dan was startled. "Junior apprentice brother, what do you mean?" Yao Wuji's attitude suddenly turned cold. Just yesterday, in the pill hall, the other elders were either threatened or bribed by Shi Dengtian. Taoist Hong Yuan and Taoist Hong even supported Shi Dengtian. Only Yao Wuji was trying his best to protect Taoist Yundan. But after just one day, Yao Wuji seemed to have changed into a different person. "Nothing, senior apprentice brother. I just suddenly realized that the Dan Cauldron sect's reputation in the cultivation world has been questioned by many. When something happened to me in Taoist Yuanda, as the sect leader of the Dan Cauldron sect, you didn't do anything to save us. You failed in your duty," Yao Wuji said coldly. Chapter 904. Yao Wuji looked at Taoist Yundan coldly and continued. "Under your leadership, the Danding sect's reputation has taken a huge hit. Many people in the cultivation world have already begun to question whether our Danding sect has the right to stand shoulder to shoulder with the 8 sections. They all think that us alchemists are not worthy of such special treatment, and that only array masters should be respected. Array masters and alchemists have their own strengths and abilities, but we still have an advantage over them." Taoist Yun Dan sensed that something was wrong with Yao Wuji. Advantage? The sect master of the formation sect, Zhuge Shaosheng, was attacked by the 2 Yumming Devil clan in our Pill Cauldron sect's territory. As the sect master of the Pill Cauldron sect, you didn't rescue him in time. Even Marshal Uncle Yuanda died in the hands of the 2 Yumming Devil clan. If it wasn't for Zhuge Shaosheng, I'm afraid even I wouldn't have survived. Now the outside world is saying that array masters are the future of the cultivation world. As the sect leader of the Danding sect, don't you understand this point? Junior brother Yao, watch your tone. You're an alchemist." Taoist Yundan's voice was laced with anger. Yao Wuji stared at Taoist Yundan. "It's because I'm an alchemist that I know what the Danding sect should do in the future." "What do you mean?" Taoist Yundan's voice was laced with anger. "What I mean is it's time for the Danding sect to change its sect leader," Yao Wuji said slowly. Asterisk bang. Asterisk the stone table under Taoist Yundan's hand was crushed into powder. "So you've been bought over by Shi Dengtian?" Taoist Yundan scolded angrily. Yao Wuji said coldly, "I just think that the Danding sect will go further under senior brother Shi's leadership." "You." Taoist Yundan stood up and pointed at Yao Wuji, glaring at Yao Wuji. He never thought that his most trusted junior brother would betray him and even say such heartless words to him. "Ha ha ha. Junior brother Yao, it's not right of you to say that. Senior brother Yundan is still our sect leader. You can't be rude." Shi Dingtian slowly walked up from the path below the cliff of reflection and looked at Yao Wuji with a radiant face. "Greetings, senior brother Shi." Yao Wuji bowed slightly as a respectful and humble smile appeared on his face. Compared to his previous indifferent attitude, it was as if he was welcoming the true master of the Danding sect. When Daoist Cloud Core saw Yao Wuji's expression, he was so angry that his entire body trembled. "Medicine Junior Apprentice Brother, what you said just now is deceiving your master and destroying your ancestors. Although Master Han Yuan and Master Hong Yi intend to reform the Danding sect, the matter of changing the sect leader must be discussed by all the elders of each branch. Next time, don't let me hear something like this again." Shi Dingtian laughed. Yao Wuji smiled and said, "Senior brother, I'm just thinking about the future of the Pill Cauldron sect. I think the Pill Cauldron sect needs a capable leader. Now that senior brother is able to invite 2 transcending tribulation stage extreme immortals as guest elders, it can be said that at this juncture, Danding School's position in the cultivation world has been consolidated. I believe that under senior brother's leadership, Danding School will go further." "Yao Wuji, how dare you?" Daoist Cloud Core scolded angrily. His chi was restless, and his green robe fluttered even though there was no wind. Yao Wuji was not afraid at all. He looked at Daoist Cloud Core with disdain and said, "Senior brother Cloud Core, under your leadership, does Danding School not even have the right to speak the truth? You, when had Daoist Cloud Core ever been so angry? As the sect leader, he was being belittled by his own junior apprentice brother. No matter how well-mannered he was, it was difficult for him to calm down. But when he thought about the current situation, even though he was still the sect leader, Han Yuan and Hong Yi, the 2 transcending tribulation stage elders, still had the right to decide whether or not he should continue to be the sect leader. The other elders were also afraid of Shi Dingtian's power and did not dare to say anything. Danding School was now in a mess and was completely controlled by Shi Dingtian. No matter how angry he was, there was nothing he could do to change the situation. "Forget it." Daoist Cloud Core let out a long sigh and shook his head. Then he slowly left the mountain peak. His silhouette looked so bleak in the sky. "I'm sorry, senior brother Cloud Core, but I have to do this. Only then can I gain Shi Dingtian's trust and find out about Shi Dingtian's plan." Yao Wuji's heart was bleeding. He wanted to slap himself a few times. He knew that this was not Daoist Cloud Core's fault. Daoist Cloud Core had always been the person he respected the most. Usually, even if someone threatened him with their life, he would not say such disgraceful words. But now, he was the one who was being controlled. A controlled person should say what he was being controlled. He had to play his role well and find out about Shi Dingtian's plan. He had to be prepared for what was about to happen. "Junior apprentice brother, it seems that the Divine Soul Array has worked on you." Shi Dingtian looked at Yao Wuji with satisfaction. He was very satisfied with Yao Wuji's reaction. "Greetings, sect leader." "Senior brother sect leader, you flatter me. I will definitely go through water and tread on fire for senior brother sect leader. I will not hesitate." Yao Wuji knelt before Shi Dingtian's feet and buried his head in the ground. His body was very stable and very natural. It was as if his respect came from the bottom of his heart. He truly treated Shi Dingtian as the sect leader of the Danding sect. "Ha ha ha. I never thought that the junior apprentice brother, who has always disliked me, would bow to me like this." Shi Dingtian laughed wildly. He then sat down on the chair that Daoist Cloud Core had been sitting on and said slowly, "Get up." "Thank you, senior brother sect leader." Yao Wuji stood up. His expression was respectful, and there was no trace of dissatisfaction. However, his heart was filled with anger and was filled with endless hatred. He was like a volcano that was about to erupt at any time. He wanted nothing more than to tear Shi Dingtian into pieces. His aura did not fluctuate in the slightest. He had firmly suppressed his hatred and anger. Whether it was his expression or his eyes, it was the expression of a person who was being controlled. He had said before that for the sake of the Danding sect, he could endure humiliation and bear the burden. He could cater to Shi Dingtian like a dog. Daoist Yuan had already lost his memories. The two elders, Hong Yuan and Hong Yi, were also being controlled. Lung Bingxue had left with Ku Mu's body. Of the 5 sect leaders, only he and Daoist Cloudcore were conscious. The remaining elders were either afraid of Shi Dengtian's power or were intimidated by Hong Yuan and Hong Yi into supporting Shi Dengtian. Yao Wuji understood that if something were to happen to him at this time, the Danding sect would truly have no hope in the future. As long as he was conscious, he could secretly protect Kai Lai and the other disciples and prevent them from being harmed by Shi Dengtian in the future. Muyu had already spent 2 days in the open ruins cauldron. Compared to the inscriptions in the array hall, there were more inscriptions in the open ruins cauldron. This was because these inscriptions seemed to record something. Only by deciphering these inscriptions would he be able to understand what the open ruins cauldron meant. At this moment, the interior of the open ruins cauldron was an extremely beautiful scene. Inscriptions were floating and spinning in the air. A green light was refracting and intertwining, connecting all the inscriptions. The source of this green light was in Muyu's hands. Muyu's eyes were filled with green array runes. He used his own method to understand these inscriptions. These inscriptions gradually revealed their original meaning in his mind. At the beginning of the primordial chaos, the myriad of laws were created and destroyed by fate. Tao gave birth to one. One gave birth to two. Two extremes gave birth to the 4 symbols. 4 symbols gave birth to the 8 trigrams, and the 8 trigrams gave birth to all things. The 2 energies of yin and yang originated from the primordial chaos, existed in the Tao item, and were bestowed upon the human heart. Muyu was puzzled as he deciphered the largest inscriptions on the walls of the cauldron. What does this mean? Little Shuai sat on top of an inscription and asked while yawning. It's about the primordial yin and yang. I'm not too sure either. Muyu found it very strange. Did the primordial yin and yang exist in the open ruins cauldron? He had always believed that the primordial yin and yang was the only thing in the world. He had obtained it a few years ago in the array sect from the array hall. Now, the primordial yin and yang still recognized him as its master. When he used the teleportation array, he never needed to consider the array foundation. However, from the meaning of these inscriptions, it seemed like the open ruins cauldron had something to do with the primordial yin and yang. However, after Muyu entered, the primordial yin and yang in his body did not react to the open ruins cauldron. Little Shuai, help me decipher this. Muyu freed one hand and triggered the Wind Sun Heart linking array, enveloping Little Shuai. With the Wind Sun Heart linking array, the clever Little Shuai could use Muyu's aura to help him decipher the other inscriptions. It says that the Tao follows nature. The 9 heavens Tao items suppress the universe. The 5-element spirit items give birth to all things. The nameless beginning of heaven and earth, the nameless mother of all things. What nonsense is this? Little Shuai said as he stroked his chin. Muyu did not understand either. He and Little Shuai started to decipher the inscriptions, one to the left and one to the right. They tried to quickly understand the inscriptions. The 3 layers of chaos combine into one. The wasteland does not surpass all races. I like to eat wontons. Heaven and earth are not benevolent. They treat all things as straw dogs. This sentence sounds like a curse. The Tao can be said, but it is not the Tao. The name can be named, but it is not the name. Isn't this what the Flowing Water Village's village chief, that big trickster, said last time? Heaven's eternity ends when the primordial chaos closes. The shadow god binds spirits not within the 5 elements. How profound. Strange. Every time Little Shuai deciphered a sentence, he would express his opinion. The inscriptions he deciphered would be known by Muyu. Therefore, Muyu knew what Little Shuai was thinking. These inscriptions seemed to be describing how the Tao came about and what the primordial chaos was. However, some parts of it left Muyu confused. Is there any use for me to understand the structure of the world? Muyu was puzzled, and Little Shuai was also puzzled. The two of them spent 2 hours and finally managed to quickly decipher all the inscriptions. However, These inscriptions didn't seem to be some powerful cultivation method. They were just some kind of recorded text. He believed that after deciphering the inscriptions, the open ruins cauldron would change. Or rather, Muyu would at least know what to do to make the open ruins cauldron change and become a power he could control. However, nothing happened. The inscriptions did not give him any useful hints. What should I do? Muyu was rather puzzled. He looked at little Shuai and realized that he was in a daze over an inscription. Little Shuai, what are you thinking about? Why is your mind so messed up? I can't keep up with your thoughts, Muyu asked. Chapter 905. Are they talking about you? Muyu looked at the inscription that Xiao Shuai was pointing at. The eternity of heaven ends when chaos closes, and the binding spirit of the shadow god is not within the 5 elements. Yes, I'm not very clear about the first sentence, but I feel that the latter sentence is talking about me, Xiao Shuai said curiously. Talking about you? You're not within the 5 elements? The binding spirit of the shadow god is not within the 5 elements. Not within the 5 elements. Not within the 5 elements. Wait, I feel like I've heard something similar somewhere. Muyu began to recall, and some fragments flashed through his mind. The memory seemed to flow in reverse in his mind. Suddenly, he thought, that's right. Phantom said something similar. When he was in the 2nd layer of heaven, the phantom guarding the netherworld grass created an illusion for Muyu that he could not distinguish between reality and illusion. It almost made Muyu collapse. He could not tell what was reality and what was illusion. Later, because of Xiao Shuai's existence, Muyu was able to sort out the illusion at once. At that time, the confused Xiao Shuai said that he seemed to know Phantom, and Phantom said to Xiao Shuai, like you can't guess my identity, and I can't implant you in the dream I created. We are always bound by the laws of heaven and earth, beyond the 5 elements. Existences like us have an inexplicable power that restricts each other, don't they? Phantom said that he and Xiao Shuai were beyond the 5 elements, and the inscription here mentioned that the binding spirit of the shadow god is not within the 5 elements. Xiao Shuai was the sword spirit of Jian Ing Chunfeng. As for Phantom, if Muyu guessed correctly, it should be an existence similar to a sword spirit that followed Phantom Qingyu. So what was the binding spirit of the shadow god mentioned in the inscription here? The shadow god refers to the white-bearded old man. The binding spirit refers to me, Xiao Shuai suddenly said with certainty. But does the god of shadows symbolize status or power? Muyu was puzzled. He could never catch up with his master's footsteps. His master was too mysterious. At this time, his master was suddenly given a strange name, and Muyu had never heard of it. Xiao Shuai said thoughtfully, I think it should be a kind of strength. You should be strong enough to be a shadow god. Look, Jian Ing Chun Feng, Phantom Ing Qingyu, Unaging Evil Shadow. Why do their names all have the wording in them? Then isn't Bai Jie also a shadow god? Muyu thought of Bai Jie's actions. Although he hated this person, he had to admit that this person's methods were very powerful. He's nothing. If he were the shadow god, he wouldn't have to try so hard to seize the immortal body of my white-bearded old man. He doesn't have the same aura as me and that stupid phantom, Xiao Shuai said. Then what happened between you and Master? Why are you like this now? Muyu asked. I don't know. I can't remember clearly. It seems that the white-bearded old man took me to do something very important. I'm sure it wasn't because of the immortal confinement prison. That thing didn't happen in the 3rd heaven. As a result, he was seriously injured, and so was I. That's probably it. Otherwise, how could we be framed by that stupid Bai Jie? Xiao Shuai rubbed his little head. Some fragments flashed through his mind. These fragments were once again captured by Muyu, who was in the wind heart linking array. It was a place where stars were shining. Countless boulders were flying. The familiar sword Qi crisscrossed. Bloody light soared into the sky. Powerful enemies seemed to want to crush the entire void. Jianing Chunfeng and Xiao Shuai were surrounded by many people hidden in the fog. Those people's terrifying cultivation seemed to be able to destroy a continent in an instant. A war was about to break out. Then blood flowed like a river. Corpses fell everywhere. In the void, there was a huge black whirlpool. It seemed to be devouring everything, emitting a terrifying aura. However, Jianing, Chun Feng, and Xiao Shuai brazenly flew towards the black whirlpool without fear. Then there was a huge explosion. It destroyed the heavens and the earth, shattering the universe. Then, in Xiao Shuai's memory fragments, there were only countless chicken and duck legs left. All right, there were also roasted goose legs. Why are you thinking about food at such a crucial moment? Can't you remember more? Muyu wished he could strangle the glutton to death. I can't remember. Food is the most important thing, Xiao Shuai said without a care. If only you were as strong as you were back then. We wouldn't have such a headache now. Muyu helplessly shook his head. Aya, why do you care if I'm strong or not? It's fine as long as I'm handsome. Xiao Shuai shook his head. Muyu couldn't get more memories from Xiao Shuai's mind, so he couldn't dig up more information. After he recorded the runes, he had to focus on the next question. What should he do after he deciphered the runes? Even if Muyu deciphered the runes, he couldn't find a way to use the open ruins cauldron. The runes only recorded some obscure information. Muyu stared at the runes in the air for a long time. Suddenly, an idea flashed in his mind as he thought of something. If these runes represent the positions of the 8 trigrams, then this rune should represent Qian. This rune should represent Li, Jin, Sun, Kuan, Zhun, Dui, and Kansas. In that case, I could try connecting these 8 runes together. Muyu began to move slowly. The light in his hand refracted on each rune, connecting them together. When the light shone on different runes, the runes in the air changed their arrangement. When Muyu walked to a certain angle, the runes connected by the refracted light formed the shape of the 8 trigrams. And at that moment, the 8 trigrams happened to be above Muyu's head. Muyu was standing in the middle of the open ruins cauldron. Hum! A soft hum seemed to come from ancient times. It was mysterious and mighty. It left one's heart shaken. All the runes in the air disappeared. Only the 8 runes were left. They vibrated with each other, producing a soul-stirring sound. 2 rays of light, one black and one white, flowed out from the 8 trigrams formation. The black and white rays of light covered the green runes in Muyu's hand. They shone straight down, enveloping Muyu. Muyu was standing on the hard, open ruins cauldron. It was unknown what material it was made of. The black and white rays of light wrapped around Muyu and landed where Muyu's feet were standing. It was like 2 pebbles falling into water, causing slight ripples. Muyu's feet seemed to be stepping on the 2 eyes of the yin-yang fish in the center of the 8 trigrams. A huge 8 trigrams formation appeared at the bottom of the open ruins cauldron. It flashed with a powerful golden light. The black and white rays of light began to swirl around Muyu. Splash! Like a fish leaping out of the water, the black and white rays of light under Muyu's feet began to rush out from the bottom of the open ruins cauldron. The black chaos aura had a white eye, and the white chaos aura had a black eye. They chased each other, entangled with each other, separated and gathered again. They were like 2 lively fairies that wandered around the open ruins cauldron. Isn't this chaos, yin and yang? Muyu was alarmed. He never expected there to be chaos, yin and yang auras here. However, the chaos, yin and yang here was different from the chaos, yin and yang in Muyu's body. He couldn't pinpoint the exact difference because the chaos, yin and yang were black and white. However, the chaos, yin and yang that appeared in the open ruins cauldron didn't have a sense of closeness to Muyu. Does this mean that you have to subdue these 2 things again? The black and white auras in the open ruins cauldron swam gently. They also bounced Little Handsome up in the air. The 2 auras clashed with each other, pushing Little Handsome back and forth as though they were playing with each other. Stop fooling around. Stop fooling around. It's itchy. Little Handsome was happily bounced around in the air, but he wasn't injured at all. The 2 auras seemed to be very intimate with Little Handsome as they happily swam around him. Little Handsome leaped into the air and landed on the black chaos aura's head. He stepped on the black chaos aura and shouted, "Charge!" My little black hero. The black chaos aura carried Little Handsome around like a mount. The white chaos aura leaped and easily lifted Little Handsome up. With a flick of its body, it caught Little Handsome. Little white hero. Let's take down Little Black together. Little Handsome transformed into his human form and sat on Little White's mount. However, the black chaos aura wasn't happy. It immediately snatched Little Handsome onto its head. Little Shuai and the two streaks of chaotic energy, one black and one white, were having a great time playing in the air. They were like the most primitive creatures, playing around innocently. Muyu looked at Little Handsome's figure thoughtfully. The yin and yang auras of chaos had a good impression of Little Handsome. This was something Muyu didn't expect. The last time Muyu entered the chaos in the array hall, Little Handsome didn't enter. It was only now that Muyu realized how extraordinary Little Handsome was. At this moment, his heart skipped a beat because he felt that the yin and yang aura in his body, which had been silent all this time, were also yearning to come out. Muyu didn't stop them. Then, the black and white auras in his body rushed out and joined in the fun in the air. There were 4 streams of chaos chi inside the ruins cauldron, and Little Shuai was a playful little boy. Little Shuai jumped around in the 4 streams of chaos chi. Each stream of chaos chi seemed to want Little Shuai to ride on its body. Your name is Big White. Your name is Little White. Your name is Big Black. Your name is Little Black. Little Handsome had already casually named the 4 chaos yin and yang auras in the air. Then he led Little Black, Little White, Big Black, and Big White to do all kinds of interesting things. Muyu could tell which 2 chaos yin and yang auras belonged to him. Ever since the chaos yin and yang had recognized him as their master, this had never happened. Now, it was as if they had found their long-lost companion. They circled Little Handsome happily. Then how should I deal with the chaos yin and yang auras here? Chapter 906. Little Handsome, come here. Stop playing. Muyu shouted at Little Handsome, who was playing with the chaotic yin and yang in the air. Okay, come with me. Little Handsome somersaulted a few times in the air and landed steadily in front of Muyu. The 4 chaotic yin and yang energies slowly circled around Little Handsome, and they even touched Little Handsome's hand affectionately from time to time. What's wrong? Muyu. Little Handsome patted Big Black and Big White's heads and asked. Muyu also felt a headache coming on. Even when the chaotic yin and yang recognized him as their master, they were never so intimate with him. Little Handsome, on the other hand, could play with anyone. You name my chaotic yin and yang Little Black and Little White, right? Then can you tell me how to subdue Big Black and Big White here? Muyu stared at the chaotic yin and yang that didn't belong to him. However, just as Muyu finished speaking, the so-called Big Black and Big White actually raised their heads and glared at Muyu. Then, they sensed something and actually pounced toward Muyu aggressively. Hey, please, what do you want? Muyu didn't expect that just saying that he wanted to subdue them would seem to have angered Big Black and Big White. Seeing that Big Black and Big White were about to crash into him, he was still thinking about whether to use a spell formation to drive them away. However, Muyu's Little Black and Little White rushed over and pushed Big Black and Big White away. Not bad, I thought I raised 2 ingrates, but it turns out that they're 2 good kids. Muyu watched in surprise as Little Black and Little White angrily tangled with Big Black and Big White. Every time Big Black and Big White were about to charge at him, they would be pushed away by Little Black and Little White. Stop fighting, stop fighting. Little Handsome ran over and wanted to mediate, but Big Black and Big White seemed to have been angered. They ignored Little Handsome and wanted to charge straight at Muyu. What's going on? I only said 1 sentence. Is there a need to be so angry? Muyu asked doubtfully. No, Big Black and Big White already have an owner. Little Handsome jumped onto Big Black and tried his best to calm Big Black down. What? Big Black and Big White already have owners? Muyu looked at Dahei and Bai, who had been calmed down by Little Shuai in surprise. Who's their master? Don't tell me it's you? It wasn't me, but Big Black and Big White said that you have their master's aura on you. Little Handsome rode on Big Black while Big White shook its head and nudged Little Handsome's cheek. I have the aura of Big Black and Big White's masters on me. Muyu's eyes widened. Could it be Deadwood Daddy? The medicine master had said that the only person from the Pill Cauldron sect who had been able to enter the Ruins Cauldron was Deadwood. At this moment, his soul was still sleeping in Muyu's jade pendant. Could it be that Deadwood Daddy had already subdued the chaotic yin and yang of the Ruins Cauldron after entering it? Muyu was quite shocked. Deadwood Daddy was a powerful alchemist with powerful spell formations. Although alchemy wasn't his forte, his spell formations were one of the best in the cultivation world. If Deadwood Daddy had subdued the chaotic yin and yang of the Ruins Cauldron, then that meant that Deadwood Daddy was the true owner of the Ruins Cauldron. With Deadwood Daddy's reticent personality, it was likely that no one in the Pill Cauldron sect knew about this. That should be the case. But Big Black and Big White said that their master didn't take them away and left them here to protect the Pill Cauldron sect. Little Handsome said as he patted Big White's head. Protect the Pill Cauldron sect? How are the two of them supposed to protect the sect? Muyu didn't quite understand Deadwood Daddy's actions because he knew his chaotic yin and yang very well. If there was no master, the chaotic yin and yang wouldn't listen to anyone else's orders, except perhaps for Little Handsome. I don't know. In any case, Big Black and Big White want you to hand over their master, Little Handsome said. Muyu hesitated for a moment because Deadwood Daddy was sleeping in the Jade Pendant's soul-immobilizing spell formation. He was very worried that something might go wrong. So he said, "Have you told them about Deadwood Daddy's situation? First, tell them not to mess around." Little Handsome nodded. Only then did Muyu carefully take out the Jade Pendant with the soul-immobilizing spell formation engraved on it and place it in his palm. Big Black and Big White immediately left Little Handsome's side excitedly and swam toward Muyu's hand. Then, they circled around the jade pendant in Muyu's hand as if they were confused, not understanding what was going on. Your master was set up by the bastards of the Third Palace, and his soul almost dissipated. Do you understand? Muyu didn't know whether Big Black and Big White understood or not, but he just said it like that. Big Black and Big White bumped into each other as if they were discussing something. Then, they suddenly burrowed into the jade pendant together. Hey, wait. Don't break the jade pendant. Muyu wanted to stop them, but Big Black and Big White were too fast. They ignored Muyu and disappeared into the jade pendant just like that. Muyu's heart became anxious, and she quickly injected her spiritual power into the jade pendant. Soon, the image of Deadwood Daddy appeared in Muyu's mind. The chest of Deadwood Daddy's soul was still so shocking. Big Black and Big White entered the soul-immobilizing spell formation without any obstruction and circled around Deadwood Daddy's soul, not knowing what to do. Big Black even nudged Deadwood Daddy, as if trying to wake him up. However, Deadwood showed no signs of waking up. Only his soul seemed to have become more solid and was also exuding a strange fluctuation. Big Black and Big White didn't seem to be able to wake Deadwood up. Then, the two guys rushed out of the soul-immobilizing spell formation again and circled anxiously above the Ruins Cauldron. Muyu's attention also shifted from Deadwood Daddy to them. Big Black and Big White bumped into Muyu a few times on the walls of the Ruins Cauldron. Then, they landed in front of Muyu and started circling around him as if trying to get Muyu to do something. Little Handsome, can you translate? Muyu felt that if Big Black and Big White could speak, they would definitely be chattering about something. However, before Little Handsome could translate, Muyu's Little Black and Little White had already landed on his shoulder and conveyed Big Black and Big White's message to Muyu. You're saying that Big Black and Big White are guarding the thing that Dad left behind? Muyu asked in surprise. That's right. Also, because you have the blood protection sky, Deadwood is basically living on your body. Big Black and Big White reluctantly acknowledge you. Little Handsome continued. Big Black and Big White circled around Muyu continuously, waves of fluctuation coming from their bodies. So what are they going to do next? Muyu was deeply moved. The blood protection sky had really helped him a lot. Little Handsome said, Big Black and Big White can only fully activate their abilities with Deadwood's help. The reason they're staying behind is because Deadwood wants to use them to test the juniors of the Pill Cauldron sect, who can enter the ruins opening cauldron. So Deadwood Daddy wants to leave the chaotic yin and yang to the people of the Pill Cauldron sect? Muyu asked. That's right, Little Handsome said. Muyu sighed softly. Deadwood had been acknowledged by the ruins opening cauldron and had become its master. However, he didn't take away the chaotic yin and yang that originally belonged to him. Instead, he left it here for the juniors. Muyu didn't know why Deadwood Daddy did this. The chaotic yin and yang belonged to those who were fated to. If he brought the chaotic yin and yang with him, he wouldn't have to worry about the formation base when he used spell formations. However, Deadwood Daddy insisted on leaving it behind. The chaotic yin and yang seems to be closely related to something in the Pill Cauldron sect. Big Black and Big White refused to tell them because Deadwood once told them that this was a secret of the Pill Cauldron sect before he left, Little Handsome said. Then do they have a way to protect the Pill Cauldron sect? Muyu asked. They're not here to protect the Pill Cauldron sect. Instead, they're here to protect the inheritance that Deadwood wants to pass on to his juniors. Inheritance? Muyu was slightly taken aback. Big Black and Big White then explained that, strictly speaking, the ruins opening cauldron didn't belong to Muyu. Thus, if Muyu wanted to obtain the inheritance of the ruins opening cauldron, he would first have to pass a few trials. I've already passed through mountains of daggers and seas of flames. What trials are there to be afraid of? Just tell me the steps, Muyu replied without hesitation. There was no room for hesitation now. Big Black and Big White seemed to understand Muyu's words. After circling around Muyu twice, they spread out in the air and began to violently slam into the walls of the ruins opening cauldron. Thump, thump, like the evening drum and morning bell. A clear and melodious sound reverberated throughout the ruins opening cauldron. Each and every sound made Muyu's spirits rise. Big Black and Big White weren't just randomly slamming into the walls. Instead, they were slamming into inscriptions. After being slammed into by them, the inscriptions would become more prominent. The inscription slammed into by Big Black would become black, while the inscription slammed into by Big White would become white. In total, Big Black and Big White slammed into the walls 81 times. None of the inscriptions slammed into the walls were the same. They all represented the same meaning, but they were all arranged in different ways. Looking from the bottom of the ruins opening cauldron, these prominent black and white inscriptions looked like an irregular 8 trigrams. After Big Black slammed into the walls for the last time, the ruins opening cauldron shuddered violently. An ancient and vast aura surged forth from all directions. Immediately afterward, the walls of the cauldron seemed to have shattered, and a vast and boundless world instantly appeared. Muyu stood in the middle of a boundless void. There seemed to be stars flashing in the distance, but there also seemed to be countless streaks of light flying through the air. Within this void, there was still the massive 8 trigrams slowly revolving beneath Muyu's feet. Right at this moment, Big Black and Big White hugged each other tightly. Their heads chased each other's tails as they spun rapidly to form a yin-yang fish. After the yin-yang fish fused together, the speed at which they spun gradually slowed down before coming to a complete stop in the end. A series of formation patterns appeared around the yin-yang fish like fleeting ripples on water. Then, the yin-yang fish parted like a door. A figure slowly stepped out from the void and landed before Muyu. You're a disciple of the Pill Cauldron sect. Chapter 907. Dad, Muyu couldn't help but call out. The figure in front of him was the young Deadwood. Back then, Deadwood was still wearing the robes of the Alchemy Cauldron sect. He still had a messy beard and hair, but it was black. He looked like an expert. Speaking of which, Deadwood's abilities were indeed worthy of being called an expert. Dad? You call me Dad? Deadwood frowned. Yeah, you can hear me? Muyu asked in surprise. I used an array to seal the consciousness of the Open Ruins Cauldron. I belong to the previous owner of the Open Ruins Cauldron. You coming here means that you are also a member of the Alchemy Cauldron sect. But why do you call me Dad? Deadwood asked. Muyu thought for a moment and asked, "If I say I'm your son, will you let me pass the test?" "No," Deadwood answered straightforwardly. "Then pretend I didn't say anything." Muyu waved his hand helplessly. "You are not my son. You don't have my bloodline aura. But why do you have?" Deadwood's consciousness showed a hint of surprise. "Blood protects the sky." Muyu sighed. "I can't believe I used such an array on you." Deadwood's eyes flashed with a strange light. He then continued, "No matter what, I'm just a consciousness. I can't interfere with anything. I'm only responsible for guiding you. The Open Ruins Cauldron is very important to the Alchemy Cauldron sect. Before you pass my test, I won't tell you anything. Everything will have to wait until you pass the test." Muyu wasn't surprised. He didn't treat Deadwood as a real person, but he was very happy to see his father speak again. "Then what exactly do I need to do?" Muyu asked. "If you want to obtain the array inside the Open Ruins Cauldron, you must first be fated with it. I won't teach you anything. Everything will depend on your own luck." With a wave of his hand, the huge 8 trigrams formation under Muyu's feet began to slowly transform. Hazy clouds suddenly flashed in front of his eyes. When Muyu could see clearly, he was surprised to find that he had already arrived in front of a flight of stairs. "Climb the stairway to heaven in 4 hours, and I will let you enter a chaotic void. If you can reach the sky in 15 steps, I will let you temporarily come into contact with the chaotic yin and yang." The dead tree looked at Muyu indifferently. "Are you serious? Dad, is this the test you gave me?" Muyu was dumbfounded. Who would have thought that Deadwood Daddy would actually move the stairway to heaven from the array hall here? The celestial stairway tests a person's ability to deduce array techniques. If you don't have this ability, then you don't have the right to inherit the ruins opening cauldron. Deadwood's voice sounded very impatient. Muyu still couldn't believe it. The stairway to heaven was nothing to him. Who would have thought that in order to test the disciples of the Danding sect, Deadwood would borrow the stairway to heaven from the array hall and move the stairway to heaven here? In Muyu's perception, although the stairway to heaven here wasn't as complicated as the array hall, it wasn't something that a person without any deduction ability could easily climb. Little Shuai was already laughing. "Hurry up! Deadwood definitely didn't expect us to be smart enough to climb the stairway to heaven. Show him what we can do." To be honest, in the Danding sect, where alchemy was respected, if there was an alchemist who had the ability to climb the stairway to heaven, they would probably be buried. This was because array techniques were completely looked down upon in the Danding sect. Otherwise, Deadwood Daddy wouldn't be the only one who had successfully entered the ruins opening cauldron. "Dad, aren't you forcing alchemists into a dead end by making this stairway to heaven?" Muyu couldn't help but laugh. Alchemists already looked down on array techniques and didn't understand the 8 diagrams knowledge. He even set up a stairway to heaven here, not giving alchemists a way out. However, Muyu also understood that the stairway to heaven was actually the best embodiment of the 8 diagrams deduction ability. The length of time and number of steps on the stairway to heaven were related to the array master's deduction ability. The shorter the time spent and the fewer steps taken, the higher the talent of one's array techniques. Muyu had taken 8 steps in an hour. Deadwood had also taken 8 steps, but he had taken 15 minutes more than Muyu. If Deadwood used himself as the standard, 4 hours and 15 steps seemed to be loosening the limit, but the requirements for alchemists entering the ruins opening cauldron were still too strict. Among the array faction's Khanate array masters, there weren't many who could meet this requirement for the first time. Muyu was considered a rare existence. Muyu immediately took a step and landed on the stairway to heaven. He deduced the requirements of the stairway to heaven with ease. This time, he only spent 15 minutes and took 9 steps to reach the top. At the top of the stairway to heaven, there was no fake array hall, only Deadwood standing there. "Very good, barely qualified," Deadwood said calmly. "Barely qualified?" Muyu was choked by Deadwood's words. He wanted to be praised by Deadwood, but in the end, he was greeted with the words "barely qualified." "Forget it. I know you don't praise people easily," Muyu shrugged and said helplessly. He arrived above a vast expanse of white clouds. A waterfall fell from the sky, as if it was pouring out from a crack in the firmament. It fell on the clouds, making a clear and crisp sound. There were birds flying around the waterfall, chirping one after another. A breeze blew and the cloud layer slowly floated. Little Black and Little White came out, seeming to like this place very much. "No, you're already the owner of a Dao tool. You have the aura of the Array Hall on you?" Deadwood frowned and said angrily, "You're not from the Pill Cauldron sect." But it was too late. Big Black and Big White seemed to have recognized Muyu, who had passed the test. They suddenly came out of the cloud layer, circled around Muyu, and then directly rushed into Muyu's body. This time, Little Black and Little White did not resist Big Black and Big White. Instead, they also entered Muyu's body. Muyu felt as if a strange space was suddenly constructed in his body. For streams of chaotic aura circled and intertwined with each other. Then, Muyu was surprised to find that everything around him had become very strange. The waterfall above the nine heavens seemed to have suddenly stopped. The water splashed on the cloud layer and stopped in mid-air, as if it was fixed in place by some strange power. The wind also seemed to have disappeared halfway. The floating cloud stopped moving, and the birds also stopped in mid-air, still flapping their wings. Deadwood's consciousness also disappeared. "What's going on?" Muyu asked in surprise. Little Shuai also scratched his head and shook his head. "I don't understand. Time seems to have stopped here." Time stopped. Big Black and Big White have such powerful abilities? Muyu asked. "It's not Big Black and Big White. It's Big Black and Big White and Little Black and Little White. Maybe when different Black and White Peter Pan meet up and reminisce about the past, this will happen." Little Shuai bit his finger and said thoughtfully. This was probably something that even Deadwood did not expect. For chaotic yin and yang would appear in this space at the same time, creating this strange phenomenon. Muyu immediately sat down cross-legged. "What are you doing?" "Cultivating." "But Deadwood Daddy probably didn't want you to cultivate. He probably wanted you to inherit the pill formation immortal's pill refinement and spell formation techniques," Little Shuai said. "Dad's spell formation techniques are already with me. Forget about pill refinement. I'm not that interested. What I'm lacking right now is time." After Muyu sealed away the power of slaughter, his cultivation base was only at the body integration stage. With the strength of a body integration stage cultivator, there was no way he could fight against the 4 tribulation stage cultivators outside. He had to quickly increase his cultivation base. The 4 chaotic yin and yang circulated within Muyu's body. Muyu felt that he would be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort if he cultivated at this time. At this moment, Big Black and Big White suddenly transmitted some secrets about the Ruins Cauldron. These were the secrets of the Ruins Cauldron and the Pill Cauldron sect. This was what Deadwood wanted to tell his successor. How could this be? Muyu was extremely shocked by this news. At the Pill Cauldron sect, today was a very important day. All the disciples of the Pill Cauldron sect were very solemn. Many of the pill refiners who had been training in the cultivation world also hurried back. Everyone was in a different mood. According to the sect rules, the Pill Cauldron sect would let all the elders decide together whether Taoist Yundan was qualified to continue being the sect leader. Many of the elders and disciples who had just returned from outside were very puzzled. This was because in their eyes, Taoist Yundan was a very wise sect leader. He had an easygoing temperament, but he was fair in his rewards and punishments. He had the demeanor of a sect leader and was famous in the cultivation world. It could be said that he was respected by everyone. Why did the 2 elders, Hong Yuan and Hong Yi, suddenly make such a decision? However, after Taoist Yuan's accident, the 2 elders, Hong Yuan and Hong Yi, were the only 2 remaining tribulation stage pill refiners in the Pill Cauldron sect. Therefore, their decision was even more important than Taoist Yundan's. In the pill hall of the Pill Cauldron sect, Taoist Yundan sat on the sect leader's seat with a tired face. Now, he was the sect leader in name only. After Taoist Yuan's accident, he was continuously criticized by the 2 elders, Hong Yuan and Hong Yi, which led him to this point. There were 2 honorable seats on both sides of the sect leader. These were the seats that the 4 sect leaders usually sat on. Now that the sect leaders of the Green Bamboo Peak and Freezing Cold Peak were not present, the two elders, Hong Yuan and Hong Yi, sat on the two highest seats. They looked at everyone in the pill hall with dignity. What surprised all the elders was that the two seats that originally belonged to Shi Dingtian and Yao Wuji were occupied by two other people who were wearing long robes and had their faces covered. Although these two people were covered by long robes, they had an aura that ordinary people could not match. Many of the Pill Cauldron School disciples and elders were dissatisfied when they saw these two mysterious people of unknown origins sitting in such a position. But when they felt the faint divine aura emanating from these two people, the dissatisfaction in their hearts disappeared without a trace. It was as if these two mysterious people should be sitting in such a position. Yao Wuji and Shi Dengtian, who were supposed to be sitting on the sect leader's seat, were sitting below these two people. Shi Dengtian even had a trace of unconcealable pride on his face. Yao Wuji also had a smile on his face. His eyes were also filled with respect. However, his heart had long been twisted into a ball. Hatred filled his heart, causing him to not be affected by the two people from the third palace. However, he could not show it. He could only pretend to be respectful. Taoist Yundan sighed. When did our Pill Cauldron sect fall to such a state? How do we let two outsiders sit on the sect leader's seat? Taoist Yundan looked at Qian Shange and Wan Shuiyao. Although these two people had a sacred aura that could affect others, it could not affect him. This was because he had the opening cauldron's array seal in his body. He felt bitter in his heart. However, he could not say anything in front of Hong Yuan and Hong. If he spoke, he would be scolded. These two elders were even very respectful towards Qian Shange and Wan Shuiyao. Taoist Yundan looked at Yao Wuji. He did not understand what had happened to Yao Wuji. This junior brother of his had always supported him unconditionally. However, even Yao Wuji had changed. The way he looked at Taoist Yundan was filled with disdain and ridicule. This was not the way Yao Wuji should look at him. Yao Wuji would never look at anyone like this. He had always been a person with great self-restraint. No matter how low the other person's cultivation was, he would always treat them with respect. Senior brother Yundan, I'm sorry. Yao Wuji felt extremely guilty. He could not stop all of this. He could only watch as the Pill Cauldron sect's rules were broken by this despicable person, Shi Dengtian. There was nothing he could do. Muyu, you must save our Pill Cauldron sect. Yao Wuji's heart was bleeding. However, he could not say anything. He was a person who was being controlled. He needed to survive. He needed to survive so that he could protect the Pill Cauldron sect's disciples in secret. With Shi Dengtian's ruthless personality, many talented disciples of the Pill Cauldron sect will be suppressed by Shi Dengtian once he was in power. Especially Taoist Yundan and Lung Bingshua's faction. They would definitely be killed. The Pill Palace was very big. It could hold thousands of people. Other than the elders of each faction, only the elite disciples of each faction could enter the Pill Palace. Everyone, I have gathered everyone here today for an important matter of the Pill Cauldron sect. Taoist Hong Yuan stood up and swept his gaze over everyone in the Pill Palace. The whispers immediately stopped. The atmosphere of the entire Pill Palace became very quiet. Recently, Yaman has been running amok in our Pill Cauldron sect's territory. He even cruelly killed our elder Yuanda. This is very distressing. It also caused our Pill Cauldron sect to be questioned by various factions in the cultivation world. They all think that our Pill Cauldron sect is not a big sect at all. Taoist Hong Yuan's voice was very loud. He coldly glanced at Taoist Yundan and said, after this incident, as the Pill Cauldron sect leader, Taoist Yundan did not notice Yaman's attack in time. He also did not take any measures to save him in time. As the sect leader, he has seriously neglected his duty. Taoist Yundan clenched his fist. Therefore, I have gathered everyone here today to discuss whether we should remove the current sect leader and elect a new sect leader. Although they already knew about this matter, hearing it from Taoist Hong Yuan's mouth still shocked everyone. Chapter 908. Countless discussions once again resounded in the Pill Palace. The matter of changing the Danding sect's sect master was of great importance. This was related to the Danding sect's reputation in the cultivation world. If this was confirmed, then Taoist Yundan would become the first sect master in the history of the Danding sect to be removed. To be honest, Taoist Yundan's leadership was admirable. No matter if it was his cultivation or character, he was one in a million. He was also an important figure in the cultivation world. If he was removed at this time, then Taoist Yundan's reputation would be destroyed. It would also shake the entire cultivation world. Despite the discussions in the Pill Palace, no one dared to stand out and object. This was because the one who made this decision was the highly respected Taoist Hong Yuan of the Danding sect. In terms of seniority, he was Taoist Yuan's junior brother. Hong Yuan and Hong Yi's talents were better than Taoist Yuanda. They had already stepped into the tribulation passing stage 10 years ago. They had been cultivating in seclusion, so they rarely came out. However, even if they didn't come out often, it didn't mean that their prestige didn't exist. The words of two tribulation passing stage elders carried a lot of weight in the Danding sect. Now that Taoist Hong Yuan said that he wanted to change the sect master, other than feeling a little uneasy and shocked, no one dared to stand out. According to the rules set by our Danding sect, if a sect master is determined to be unsuitable to continue leading the Danding sect, then there are two choices. The first is for the sect master to abdicate himself and appoint a successor. Then, all the elders will decide whether to approve this person to become the sect master. The second is for all the elders to agree to remove the sect master. Then, the person with the highest seniority will appoint a successor. Everyone will decide whether this person is qualified to become the sect master. Taoist Hong Yuan turned around and stared at Taoist Yundan. Yundan, we now believe that you have done nothing while you were in charge of the Danding sect. You have let the Danding sect's reputation suffer one after another. After my discussion with junior brother Hong Yi, we believe that you are no longer qualified to lead the Danding sect. What do you have to say? Taoist Yundan silently raised his head and looked at Taoist Hong Yuan. He slowly let out a breath and said, Yundan has done things with a clear conscience. The truth about Yuman's attack hasn't been found yet. You two martial uncles, why are you so anxious? I wonder what your intentions are. How dare you? How dare you question us? Hong Yi shouted angrily. Doubt? The rules of the Pill Cauldron sect have already been broken by the two martial uncles. Could it be that others are not allowed to question it? Taoist Yundan was not afraid at all. He knew what this meant. The main point was not who would become the sect head, but the two unknown people that Shi Dengtian had brought back. Even though they knew that these two people were Qian Shange and Wan Shuiyao, who were ranked 13th and 14th on the Supreme Immortal Leaderboard, no one knew their background. No one had seen their faces since they came to the Pill Cauldron sect. Even when they saw Taoist Cloud Pill, they were arrogant. Whether it was Shi Dengtian, Hong Yuan, or Hong Yi, the two Taoists, they were all very respectful to these two people and even seemed to follow their lead. This was obviously against common sense. Taoist Yundan was worried that the Danding sect would not fall into Shi Dengtian's hands, but would be controlled by these two unknown outsiders, so he would not easily give up the position of sect leader. In fact, Taoist Yundan was right. These two people were indeed here to control the Pill Cauldron sect. The elixirs of alchemists were very important to self-cultivators. Once they fought with Yaman, the presence of an alchemist could quickly help self-cultivators recover from their injuries and greatly reduce the number of casualties. If fewer people died, their soul power would also be reduced. This was not something that the people of the Third Palace wanted to see. Taoist Yundan's cold gaze fell on Qian Shange and Wan Shuiyao, who were sitting in the branch master seats. He continued, no matter how amazing these two people are, they are still outsiders. They are not qualified to participate in the important discussions of the Pill Cauldron sect. Martial uncles, why are you letting these two people sit here so casually? For the future of the Pill Cauldron sect, Taoist Yundan would not compromise so easily. Bastard, haven't you lost enough face for the Pill Cauldron sect? Your dereliction of duty allowed Yuan to cause trouble in our territory and even caused senior brother Yuan to lose his life. Look at what our Pill Cauldron sect has become. We can't even gather 5 branch masters. If Shi Dingtian didn't invite these 2 immortals to hold the fort, how could our Pill Cauldron sect become a big sect that can stand shoulder to shoulder with the 8 gates? Hong Yuan rebuked angrily. Stand shoulder to shoulder with the 8 gates? Our Pill Cauldron sect relies on alchemy, not outsiders. Martial uncles, you are seniors in the tribulation passing stage, but you are still level 7 alchemists. Instead of improving your own alchemy skills, you want to rely on outsiders to raise your status. What a joke. Taoist Yundan had already thrown caution to the wind. Even if he was no match for Hong Yuan and Hong Yi, he had nothing to be afraid of. He understood that Hong Yuan and Hong Yi's sudden appearance was probably related to Shi Dingtian. These 2 were elders of the Pill Cauldron Peak. It was unreasonable for them to support Shi Dingtian of the Tianji Peak. How dare you? When Hong Yuan heard Taoist Yundan mentioning alchemy, his face flushed red. Clearly, this was a thorn in their hearts. Although Taoist Yuan's talent in cultivation was slightly inferior to Hong Yuan and Hong Yi, his alchemy skills were one of the best in the Pill Cauldron sect. The reason why he hadn't broken through to the tribulation passing stage for so many years was because he was overly obsessed with alchemy. He didn't pay attention to his cultivation, causing countless wood dregs to accumulate in his body. This was the reason why his cultivation couldn't surpass his 2 junior brothers. However, Pill Cauldron sect was a sect that focused on alchemy. Alchemy was the king. After Taoist Yuan stepped into the crossing tribulation realm with the help of Mu Yu, he had become the top disciple of Pill Cauldron sect in terms of cultivation and alchemy. Therefore, Hong Yuan and Hong Yi could not be compared to Taoist Yuanda. Therefore, when Taoist Yuanda got into trouble, the Pill Cauldron sect no longer had any level 8 alchemists. Now, Hong Yuan and Hong Yi had placed their hopes on 2 outsiders and didn't pay attention to improving their alchemy skills to strengthen their status. This was putting the cart before the horse. In Taoist Yundan's eyes, it was extremely laughable. Yundan, you're no longer suitable to be the sect leader. If you know what's good for you, you'd better step down and appoint a successor. Let us discuss whether we agree or not. Taoist Hong Yuan didn't want to engage in a meaningless argument. Taoist Yundan glanced at everyone before his gaze landed on Shi Dingtian. He sneered, "You want me to appoint a successor? What if all of you are against this person? Then let the 2 of us choose a suitable candidate." Taoist Hong Yuan said without hesitation. Taoist Yundan stood up and scoffed. "Why are you beating around the bush? Why don't you just directly point out that Shi Dingtian is the suitable successor?" Shi Dingtian also looked at Taoist Yundan. However, he looked calm. He stood up and cupped his fists. "Senior brother Yundan, the choice of the sect leader needs to be carefully considered. The 2 junior uncles have the highest cultivation now. Naturally, they have the most right to speak." Taoist Yundan's eyes flashed with anger as he turned his gaze to Yao Wuji. Yao Wuji was the person he trusted the most. He knew the big picture and had a stable temperament. He shouldn't be like this. However, that day, he said such unreasonable words to him. Taoist Yundan still couldn't believe that these words would come out from Yao Wuji's mouth. He looked at Yao Wuji and asked, "Junior brother Yao, do you still mean this?" Yao Wuji's heart twitched. He really wanted to tell Taoist Yundan the truth. He wanted to tell his senior brother that he was only forced by the situation. No matter what he said or did, it wasn't his original intention. However, Yao Wuji couldn't say it. He had to stand on Shi Dingtian's side. Yao Wuji forced his eyes to reveal a mocking expression and said, "Senior brother Yundan, I think you should just abdicate. Hand over the Pill Cauldron array seal in your body. This way you won't be hurt." Taoist Yundan took a deep breath. However, his eyes dimmed. He really hoped that Yao Wuji was only joking with him. This was because he knew Yao Wuji's character the best. His junior brother was usually humble and steady. He would always consider things from the perspective of the Pill Cauldron sect. However, this time, Yao Wuji chose to stand on Shi Dingtian's side. If he did so, the Pill Cauldron sect would be doomed. Taoist Yundan couldn't understand why Yao Wuji would treat him like this. The Pill Cauldron Array Seal. Taoist Yundan took a deep breath and said firmly, I, Yundan, do things with a clear conscience. I will not hand over the Pill Cauldron Array Seal. The Pill Cauldron Array Seal was a token of the Pill Cauldron sect's sect master. It came from the Pill Cauldron Array Seal, the Pill Cauldron Array Seal. With this array seal, the sect master would not be controlled by anyone. This was also the reason why Qian Shange and Wan Shuiyao couldn't control Taoist Yundan. With the ruins opening Cauldron Array Seal, Taoist Yundan could control the secrets of the entire Pill Cauldron sect. He could also control all the arrays of the Pill Cauldron sect. Although he didn't know anything about arrays and could only activate the basic defensive arrays, the Pill Cauldron Array Seal allowed him to become the true master of the Pill Cauldron sect. You don't want to hand over the Pill Cauldron Array Seal? Then let's do it ourselves. Taoist Hong Yuan shouted. What? Now you're skipping the step of getting all the elders to agree on it? Taoist Yundan looked at Taoist Hong Yuan and Taoist Hong Yi, who couldn't wait to support Shi Dangtian. Then he laughed out loud. He looked at everyone in the Pill Palace. His gaze swept across all the elders below. Those elders who were targeted by him didn't dare to look him in the eyes. They all avoided Taoist Yundan's gaze. Many of them chose to stand on Shi Dangtian's side because they received benefits from him. There were also some who were threatened by Shi Dangtian and were afraid of being harmed by him. Therefore, they had no choice but to stand on Shi Dangtian's side. You're no longer fit to be the sect leader of the Pill Cauldron sect. Why do we still need to go through those unnecessary steps? Are you really not going to hand it over? Taoist Hong Yi shouted coldly. Taoist Yundan's white robe fluttered in the wind. He said, as if he was facing death, if I hand over the Pill Cauldron Array Seal to a bunch of ambitious people like you, then the Pill Cauldron sect will cease to exist. You can kill me, but I won't become the center of the Pill Cauldron sect. Taoist Yundan's body emitted an unyielding aura. It was like the sun, causing everyone to tremble. They were all intimidated by Taoist Yundan. Their sect leader was a body integration stage alchemist. He was born with the temperament of a leader. How could Shi Dangtian compare to him? Yao Wuji panicked. He knew what the consequences of Taoist Yundan's actions were. If Taoist Yundan didn't want to hand over the Pill Cauldron Array Seal, then Taoist Hong Yuan and Taoist Hong Yi would use force to take the Pill Cauldron Array Seal from Taoist Yundan's body. Once they did that, Taoist Yundan's foundation would be damaged, and he would become a useless person. Yao Wuji couldn't let Taoist Yundan end up like that. He stood up and shouted, Senior Brother Yundan, I advise you not to do anything stupid. As long as Taoist Yundan voluntarily handed over the Pill Cauldron Array Seal, Taoist Yundan wouldn't be harmed at all. At most, he would be controlled and wouldn't be killed. As long as he was alive, the Pill Cauldron sect would still have hope in the future. But if Taoist Yundan was crippled, Yao Wuji would regret it. Do something stupid? Ha ha ha. Junior Brother Yao, who do you think is the one doing something stupid? Taoist Yundan didn't know that Mu Yu was in the Pill Cauldron sect. He also didn't know that Yao Wuji was just a person being controlled. Under such circumstances, he couldn't back down. If he handed over the Pill Cauldron Array Seal, the Pill Cauldron sect would be controlled by outsiders. As the sect leader, he couldn't just hand over the Pill Cauldron sect so easily. He would rather die than see the Pill Cauldron sect destroyed. For the sake of the Pill Cauldron sect, Yao Wuji chose to endure the humiliation because he knew the truth and placed his hopes on Mu Yu. But also for the sake of the Pill Cauldron sect, Taoist Yundan chose to live and die with the Pill Cauldron sect. He didn't know the truth, and under such circumstances, he wanted to live and die with the Pill Cauldron sect. Shi Dangtian said hypocritically, Senior Brother, this isn't very wise of you. Even Junior Brother Yao agreed with the decision made by Hong Yuan and Hong Yi. Why are you still so attached to the position of power? For someone like you, it's no wonder the Pill Cauldron sect's reputation would be damaged. Shi Dangtian didn't hesitate to maliciously slander Taoist Yundan. Now that he had Qian Shange and Wan Shuiyao by his side, as well as the support of Hong Yuan and Hong Yi, he began to show his true colors. I've never been attached to the position of sect leader. As long as someone has the ability to take the position, they can take it. But the only thing I know is that a heartless and unscrupulous person like you is not fit to be the sect leader of the Pill Cauldron sect. Taoist Yundan floated up, and in a flash, he flew towards Shi Dangtian. He wanted to kill Shi Dangtian. However, Qian Shange and Wan Shuiyao had already expected Taoist Yundan to have such thoughts. They had already blocked Shi Dangtian's path. Qian Shange raised his hand, and Taoist Yundan was sent flying. The combat strength of alchemists was very low. Taoist Yundan didn't have the ability to fight against a crossing calamity stage cultivator like Zhuge Shaosheng. He couldn't stop Qian Shange. At this time, Hong Yuan and Hong Yi had also made their moves and firmly restrained Taoist Yundan. They exerted their crossing calamity stage spiritual energy on Taoist Yundan's body, making him unable to move. Chapter 909. How dare you? Yundan, how dare you disregard the law and commit a crime in front of the pill hall? Taoist Hong Yuan shouted angrily. Taoist Cloud Core laughed loudly. Ha! Disregarding the law. You are the ones who have no regard for the law. I respect you as elders, but you don't put me in your eyes at all. You've forgotten the rules left behind by the ancestors of Danding's sect. You've forgotten your ancestors. Today, I'll exercise my authority as the sect leader and execute you on the spot. Taoist Cloud Pill's body suddenly erupted with a monstrous aura. The image of a pill cauldron appeared behind his back and instantly sent Hong Yuan and Hong Yi flying. He disappeared from the pill hall and reappeared in the sky above the Pill Cauldron sect. Hong Yuan and Hong Yi were shocked. They were both at the Tribulation Crossing stage, while Taoist Yundan was only at the Form Synthesis stage. He had been restrained, but he had not expected to break free. He's outside. Taoist Hong Yuan's figure flashed, and he rushed out of the pill hall. Everyone in the pill hall had a change of expression. They didn't understand what was going on. Then, they quickly followed after him. The 3,000 feet tall ruins opening cauldron floated in the air, emanating a solemn and ancient aura. Everyone in the Alchemy Cauldron sect was familiar with the ruins opening cauldron. This was because when they entered the sect, they saw a huge cauldron. It was rumored that it controlled the fate of the Alchemy Cauldron sect. But other than the core members of the Pill Cauldron school, no one knew what it meant to open the ruins cauldron. At that moment, Taoist Cloud Pill was standing on the open ruins cauldron. The cauldron phantom behind him was identical to the open ruins cauldron. The open ruins cauldron also emitted a majestic and melodious aura that resonated with Taoist Cloud Pill's aura. I didn't want to use the cauldron of ruins, but Uncle Masters, your actions have disappointed me greatly. Taoist Yundan clasped his hands together before slowly separating them. The mark of the cauldron of ruins formed between his hands. It was a golden cauldron phantom, identical to the symbol of the Elixir Cauldron sect. When the Pill Cauldron mark appeared, the skies above the entire Pill Cauldron sect suddenly changed color. The entire Pill Cauldron sect seemed to be enveloped by a majestic pressure. All the disciples of the Danding school felt an inexplicable palpitation in their hearts. This majestic pressure was too great, making them feel insignificant and difficult to resist. Open Ruins seal, forge the universe. Taoist Cloud Core roared furiously. His eyes transformed into an intimidating white light that illuminated the entire Pill Cauldron sect. The Kaishu Cauldron behind him emitted a distant cry. 81 inscriptions emerged from the Kaishu Cauldron and revolved around Taoist Cloud Core. Each inscription was 10 feet long and was floating in the air. The entire Alchemy Cauldron school began to shake. It was as if an ancient giant beast was about to break free from the ground. Pill Cauldron sect revered cauldrons when it came to refining pills. The Pill Cauldron sect was the cornerstone treasure of Pill Cauldron sect. It was said that in ancient times, the Pill Cauldron sect could not only refine pills, but it could also refine mountains, rivers, heaven, and earth. It could refine the entire world into a single pill. My lord, the seal of opening ruins is not a simple thing. Yin Dan has the right to control the cauldron of opening ruins. What should we do now? Taoist Hong Yuan asked respectfully beside Qian Shange and Wan Shuiyao. There's no hurry. I'd like to see how powerful the Kaishu cauldron, one of the legendary 9 Dao artifacts, is. Qian Shange looked at Daoist Cloud Core thoughtfully. At this moment, Daoist Cloud Core was like a god who had descended from the heavens. His aura had already merged with the Kaishu cauldron. The pill cauldron array seal in his hand seemed to be able to suppress mountains and rivers and refine all demons. The disciples of Pill Cauldron sect looked at Daoist Cloud Core in shock. This was the first time they had seen Daoist Cloud Core use such a terrifying technique. Even when the White Ape Demon King had broken free, Daoist Cloud Core did not activate the seal of opening ruins. Today, their sect master had indeed been forced to a dead end by Hong Yuan and Hong Yi. Cloud Core, you are not the true owner of the Kaishu Cauldron. You only have the seal of opening ruins. The price of activating the Kaishu Cauldron is to burn your life force. Are you not afraid of death? Qian Shange suddenly took a step forward and appeared in front of Daoist Cloud Core. As soon as he said that, the expressions of everyone in Pill Cauldron's sect changed. It was no wonder that Daoist Cloud Core did not use such a terrifying technique like seal of opening ruins when the White Ape Demon King had broken free. It turned out that he had to pay with his own life. Daoist Cloud Core's expression was resolute. He said coldly, "In order to exterminate you 2 demons and let the orthodoxy of Pill Cauldron's sect continue, I, Cloud Core, am willing to sacrifice myself." What a self-sacrificing sect master of Pill Cauldron sect. Such a spirit is truly worthy of praise and tears. Unfortunately, you are muddle-headed and will only lead Pill Cauldron sect into a land of injustice. Pill Cauldron sect can only continue without you. Wan Shuiyao also appeared in front of Qian Shange. He let out a burst of loud laughter that echoed in the ears of all the disciples of Pill Cauldron sect. He sounded so righteous. What a pity. Qian Shange shook his head. What's there to pity? Daoist Cloud Core glared at Qian Shange and Wan Shuiyao. Although he did not know who these 2 people were, he could roughly guess in his heart. He also understood that these 2 people were closely related to the abnormalities of Master Hong Yuan and Hong Yi. Unfortunately, you won't have the chance to use Forge the Universe, Wan Shuiyao said with a smile. What? Daoist Cloud Core was shocked. The ruins opening seal in his hand spun rapidly. However, the ruins opening cauldron behind him gradually fell silent. The majestic aura from before also slowly retracted. The 81 inscriptions that surrounded it also began to gradually dissipate in the air. What have you done? Daoist Cloud Core was furious. The ruins opening seal that appeared between his hands could no longer be maintained. It was immediately destroyed. Nothing. I just separated the aura of the real ruins opening cauldron from this one. A white light appeared in Qian Shange's hand. The light was incomparably holy and awe-inspiring. The white light transformed into array patterns that surrounded the ruins opening cauldron. How is this possible? Daoist Cloud Core was extremely shocked. Anything is possible. Qian Shange had already waved his hand. A beam of light blasted Daoist Cloud Core's body, sending him flying heavily. Buzz! Daoist Cloud Core's body slammed into the ruins opening cauldron, producing a dull sound that reverberated throughout the entire Pill Cauldron sect. Everyone was stunned. Daoist Cloud Core spat out a mouthful of blood that splattered into the air before dissipating with the wind. He suddenly looked at Shi Dingtian and bellowed angrily. Shi Dingtian, you actually brought an outsider into our Pill Cauldron sect's forbidden grounds. There were 2 ruins opening cauldrons. The one inside the teleportation array was the real one. The one outside was only a shadow. Although it looked extremely real, it did not have a physical body. There is only one explanation for Taoist Cloud Core's loss of connection with the ruins opening cauldron. Someone had entered the ruins opening cauldron in the teleportation array and used some powerful means to sever his connection with the ruins opening cauldron. Although we are unable to enter the ruins opening cauldron, you are not its owner. You have only forcefully become the owner of the ruins opening cauldron. To sever your connection with the ruins opening cauldron is just too simple, said Wanshui Yao. That day, when Yao Wuji brought Mu Yu into the Pill Cauldron sect's sacred grounds, they happened to meet Shi Dengtian and company. They were there to prevent Taoist Cloud Core from using the ruins opening cauldron. As a member of the Pill Cauldron sect, Shi Dengtian knew how to suppress the ruins opening cauldron. Shi Dengtian smiled slightly and said, "Senior brother, it is our Pill Cauldron sect's blessing for the two of them to enter our Pill Cauldron sect's sacred grounds for a tour." Insolence. Other than us alchemists, no one is allowed to enter the Pill Cauldron sect's sacred grounds. I didn't expect you to do such a disgraceful thing. Taoist Cloud Core clutched his chest as his face turned incomparably pale. However, his voice contained monstrous anger. "Cut the crap, senior brother. You are muddle-headed and incompetent. Now that you have exhausted all your abilities, why don't you obediently hand over the ruins opening cauldron?" Shi Dengtian's eyes flashed with a sinister light. Taoist Cloud Core stared fixedly at Shi Dengtian and rebuked angrily. "Even if I die, I will not hand the ruins opening cauldron to you. Then we will have to do it ourselves. However, let me warn you, if we force the ruins opening cauldron out of your body, you will become a cripple in the future." Shi Dengtian sneered. Yao Wuji panicked and quickly came to Shi Dengtian's side. He said humbly, "Senior brother, please calm down. It is not good to use force in front of so many disciples. This will make us look like we are rebelling. I am afraid that many disciples will not accept this. Let me go and persuade Taoist Cloud Core. As long as he voluntarily hands over the ruins opening cauldron sect, you can rightfully become the sect leader of the Pill Cauldron sect." Shi Dengtian pondered for a moment and realized that Yao Wuji's words made sense. He nodded, "All right, you go and persuade him. If he still refuses to come to his senses, then don't blame me for what happens next." "Thank you, senior brother." Having said that, Yao Wuji floated up and landed next to Taoist Cloud Core. He supported the heavily injured Taoist Cloud Core as a look of worry flashed across his eyes. "Senior brother, a wise man submits to circumstances. You should hand over the ruins opening cauldron yourself. Don't lose your life because of this." Taoist Cloud Core looked into Yao Wuji's eyes. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said slowly, "Junior brother, tell me that this was not your intention. You were forced into this because you had no other choice, right?" He still believed in Yao Wuji and believed that his junior brother must have had his reasons for doing such a thing. Yao Wuji did not avoid Taoist Cloud Core's gaze. He tried his best to suppress his emotions and said, "Senior brother Shi is more suitable than you to be the sect leader of the Pill Cauldron sect. Do you still not understand? I don't know what happened to you, but the junior brother Yao that I know would not say such things to me. You are not my junior brother Yao." Taoist Cloud Core pushed Yao Wuji away. His eyes were filled with determination as he stared at Yao Wuji with disdain and grief. "Senior brother, I'm doing this for your own good." Yao Wuji's heart was filled with pain. He knew the truth, but he had to play the role of a controlled person. He could only try his best to persuade Taoist Cloud Core. If Taoist Cloud Core continued to be stubborn, he would definitely be tortured by Shi Dengtian. However, Taoist Cloud Core had already stepped forward. He looked at Yao Wuji and laughed loudly. "I'm not like you. I'd rather die than be a shameless person." Chapter 9:10. I would rather die than be a dishonorable person. Yao Wuji was hit hard by these words. His breathing became hurried. He knew the truth and knew that this was all part of the Threefold Palace's scheme. He was now the one being controlled and had placed all his hopes on Mu Yu. In order to ensure the survival of the Dan Cauldron sect and to protect the ignorant disciples of the Dan Cauldron sect, he chose to bow down to Shi Dangtian. But Taoist Yundan's words, "I would rather die than be a dishonorable person," had deeply hurt him. He was also a branch master of the Pill Cauldron sect, and he had the courage to fight for the sect. He was willing to stand out in the open and fight to the death with the Pill Cauldron sect, just like Taoist Cloud Pill, who would rather die than submit. But now, the Dan Cauldron sect was no longer what it used to be. 2 of the 5 branch leaders had already left, and Taoist Yundan could not even protect himself. If something happened to him, then the Dan Cauldron sect would be completely under Shi Dangtian's control. There had to be someone who had to endure the humiliation. There had to be someone who understood the situation. For the future of the Dan Cauldron sect, for the disciples of the Dan Cauldron sect to not be oppressed by Shi Dangtian, Yao Wuji had to be such a person. "Senior brother, I see further than you." Yao Wuji slowly calmed himself down and tried his best to suppress the seniority in his heart. Taoist Yundan did not know the truth of the matter. He would rather die than compromise. But Yao Wuji knew the truth. He had to silently accept everything, even if it meant being a dishonorable person. "Coward," Taoist Yundan said disdainfully. Yao Wuji was stunned for a moment. Then, he slowly turned around and walked towards Shi Dangtian. "Junior brother, don't you understand senior brother Yundan's personality? He is not someone who will bow down. Looks like we have to use force." Shi Dangtian patted Yao Wuji's shoulder. Yao Wuji smiled humbly. "Senior brother, you are right." His heart was filled with torment. If he did not know the truth, he would rather die than submit to Shi Dangtian like Taoist Yundan. Shi Dangtian looked coldly at Taoist Yundan. "Senior brother Yundan, don't blame me." Qian Shange and Wan Shuiyao had already taken a step forward. But at this moment, a figure landed in front of Taoist Yundan, protecting him. No one is allowed to touch sect leader. It was Kai Lai. Kai Lai's gaze was resolute. He held a sword in his hand, and his expression was solemn. He appeared before everyone, his white robes fluttering in the wind. His arrogance was awe-inspiring, and he showed no fear at all. His appearance was something that none of the Danding sect disciples had expected. Yao Wuji, who had already returned to Shi Dangtian's side, was extremely shocked. "Kai Lai, Taoist Cloud Pill never would have thought that the person who appeared beside him at this time was not his disciple, but Yao Wuji's disciple, the one who was extremely talented in alchemy, but extremely lazy, Kai Lai. Danding sect only has one sect leader, and that is Martial Uncle Yundan. None of you are worthy." Kai Lai's voice was sonorous and powerful, reverberating throughout the entire Pill Cauldron sect for a long time. The fluctuations of the open ruins cauldron had already attracted all the disciples of the alchemy cauldron school. Kai Lai's stubborn figure was reflected in everyone's eyes. It made the disciples who were usually arrogant suddenly feel a little incredulous. Was this person really Kai Lai? Which one of them was looking for wine to drink? "Bastard, what are you doing? Didn't I tell you to cultivate at the cliff of reflection?" Yao Wuji's face was filled with rage, but his heart was filled with panic. He knew his disciple's personality very well. Although he usually liked to slack off in his cultivation, when it came to important matters, he would never make any mistakes. Yao Wuji had been worried that Kai Lai would do something like this, so he had locked Kai Lai up at the cliff of reflection, forbidding him from doing anything rash. However, he never thought that Kai Lai would escape from the cliff of reflection at this time and come here. Kai Lai's expression was solemn as he looked at his master. His eyes were filled with confusion because his master had never been someone who was afraid of death. He did not understand why he would choose to betray Taoist Cloud Pill at this time and side with Shi Dangtian. After something like this has happened, how could I possibly stay at the cliff of reflection peacefully? I don't understand why you would choose Shi Dangtian's lackey. This is not the master I know. Kai Lai's eyes were red. For the sake of the righteousness in his heart, for the sake of the Pill Cauldron sect, he had fearlessly stood against his master. He was different from the other disciples of the Pill Cauldron sect. He was used to being lazy, but once he got serious, he had a backbone that no other disciple could match. Evil creature, how dare you act so disrespectfully in front of so many seniors? I will teach you a good lesson today. Yao Wuji's heart was filled with anxiety. He must act before Shi Dangtian, capture Kai Lai, and deal with him himself. Otherwise, if Qian Shange and Wan Shuiyao were to act, Kai Lai would not be able to survive. Without waiting for Shi Dangtian and the others to speak, Yao Wuji charged out once again. He grabbed his disciple with one hand, wanting to restrain Kai Lai. He could not persuade Daoist Cloud Pill, who was unafraid of death, but he did not want Kai Lai to lose his life for this. However, Kai Lai raised his hand and swallowed a pill. A powerful aura instantly enveloped his body, and his cultivation level rose rapidly. In an instant, he was on par with Yao Wuji. Kai Lai unsheathed his sword and met his master's attack head-on. Ding! Yao Wuji blocked the attack, but Kai Lai had already swallowed another pill. His aura rose sharply once again, and a powerful force came from his arm, pushing Yao Wuji back. A 7th-grade medicinal pill, the 9 revolving pill, could raise one's cultivation to the 9th layer of the heavenly layer for an hour. Level 6 pill, sky raising pill. It could allow one to be invincible within the same level for a quarter of an hour. Bastard, you dared to use the pill I gave you against your master? Yao Wuji was furious. The 9 revolving pill was a level 7 pill. Only body fusion stage cultivators should be able to concoct it. However, Master Yao's alchemy skills were extremely high. When he was at the spirit severing stage, he had already concocted the level 7 pill, the 9 revolving pill. This was also the pill that made him famous when he was still at the spirit severing stage. This pill could allow a person to reach the highest level in an instant. For example, Kai Lai was only at the first level of the spirit severing stage, but with the help of the 9 revolving pill, his cultivation level was forcefully raised to the 9th level of the spirit severing stage. Yao Wuji was worried that something would happen to Kai Lai, so he gave the level 7 pill to Kai Lai as a life-saving item. He did not expect Kai Lai to use it against him. Kai Lai's chest heaved up and down. The spiritual energy in his body was restless, but his expression was very stubborn. Master, you said that when concocting pills, one must first train one's heart. Only when one's heart is right can one concoct the best pills. Using pills is the same. I put the pills in the right place. This is what you taught me. Yao Wuji angrily rebuked. But I did not send you to your death. But you sent martial uncle sect leader to his death. I'm sorry. Master, I don't know what happened to you, but I can't watch martial uncle sect leader be harmed by you. If you want to hurt martial uncle sect leader, please kill me first. Kai Lai was incomparably stubborn. He remembered his master's teachings and his identity as a disciple of the Pill Cauldron sect. He could not watch the Pill Cauldron sect be tainted by 2 outsiders. He also could not watch something happen to martial uncle sect leader. He couldn't just stand by and watch all of this happen with a clear conscience. Yao Wuji's heart was filled with bitterness. His disciple would rather die than submit. He had a proud and unyielding character. As his master, he should feel proud, but he understood that many times having a proud and unyielding character meant losing one's life. He endured humiliation in order to protect Pill Cauldron sect disciples like Kai Lai so that they could have a better future. He did not want to send Kai Lai and the others to their deaths. Ha ha, how ironic. Junior brother Yao, I didn't think that even your disciple will be understood by you. Daoist Yun Dan laughed loudly and placed his hand on Kai Lai's shoulder. Kai Lai, you can leave. It's enough that you have the heart. But today's matter, I can't let you be in danger. Daoist Yun Dan patted Kai Lai's shoulder, his heart filled with sorrow. He did not think that Yao Wuji's disciple would stand up for him at this time. He also had some disciples like Bi Wen Xuan and Lian Tianyu. A while ago, he knew that things would not end well, so he did the same thing as Yao Wuji. The reason why he met Yao Wuji that day at the Cliff of Reflection was because he had found a reason to punish his 2 disciples to face the wall and reflect on their mistakes. He did not want them to be involved in this matter. But Kai Lai found a way to escape from the cliff of reflection and stood in front of Taoist Yundan. He stood against his master, against Shi Dengtian, against everyone from Pill Cauldron sect. No, senior uncle, I will not retreat. Kai Lai shook his head. Leave. You have such a heart. You are much stronger than your master. You are the future of Pill Cauldron sect. I don't want anything to happen to you. Taoist Yundan said tiredly. But Kai Lai still shook his head. Sect master uncle, if Pill Cauldron sect falls into the hands of villains, then what's the difference between being alive and being dead? My master always said that a man of character should be able to support the heavens and earth. He should do what he does. If he dies for loyalty, then it is a worthy death. I am willing to live or die with Pill Cauldron sect. Kai Lai kept looking at Yao Wuji. He looked at this elder whom he respected so much. Yao Wuji silently listened to Kai Lai's words. His heart ached, but he also felt gratified. Kai Lai remembered everything he said and did it. But he, who taught Kai Lai these words, could not do it himself. Yao Wuji really wanted to stand in front of Taoist Yundan, in front of Kai Lai. He wanted to tell them that he was on their side. He was also willing to live or die with Pill Cauldron sect. But Yao Wuji controlled himself. He could not let his emotions affect his decisions. Kai Lai and Taoist Yundan did not know the truth, but he did. What a great, we are bound together for good or ill. Ha ha ha. Good. Kai Lai, if you're not afraid of death, then let us face this together. Taoist Yundan's tired face suddenly shone with a strange light. In everyone's eyes, he looked very carefree. He looked at Yao Wuji with disdain. Looking at this junior brother who had abandoned his principle for the sake of survival, he suddenly felt very happy. Kai Lai did not stand on his master's side. Instead, he stood on his side. It was as if he was slapping Yao Wuji's face. This was the principle that Kai Lai wanted to uphold. Taoist Yundan did not want to destroy Kai Lai's determination to face death unflinchingly. The moment Kai Lai stood out, Taoist Yundan understood that even if Kai Lai survived this time, he would be remembered by Shi Dengtian. In the end, he would be ostracized, and Shi Dengtian would find all sorts of excuses to kill him. Shi Dengtian would not allow someone like Kai Lai, who was not afraid of death, to live in Pill Cauldron sect. Rather than that, he might as well fulfill Kai Lai's wish and become a person who was not afraid of death and was willing to sacrifice himself for justice. Chapter 9:11. Kai Lai's courage was outstanding, and he stood there dazzling. His light covered everyone as if he had suddenly become the core of the entire Dan Cauldron sect. His choice made Yao Wuji feel relieved, but it also made Yao Wuji feel worried. Yao Wuji sighed. If he did not know the truth and did not know that Mu Yu was still inside the Kai Su Cauldron, trying to obtain the inheritance of the Kai Su Cauldron, he would have also sacrificed his life to protect the dignity of the Dan Cauldron sect. However, the current situation of the Dan Cauldron sect was not something that could be salvaged by just him and Yundan. Yao Wuji did not want Kai Lai to lose his life because of this. Bastard, I will not allow you to do such a stupid thing. Yao Wuji also took out his pills. He needed to use force to capture Kai Lai and then lock him up again. Otherwise, Yundan would not be the only one in trouble today. However, Shi Dengtian stopped Yao Wuji. Junior brother, don't be impatient. Shi Dengtian seemed to have thought of something and said lazily. Yao Wuji said anxiously, Senior brother, Kai Lai did not do it on purpose. Please give me a chance. Give Kai Lai a chance to turn over a new leaf. No rush. Shi Dengtian had already stepped forward and looked at all the disciples of the Dan Cauldron sect. He said loudly, Kai Lai, oh Kai Lai, I really misjudged you. Then let me see how many more foolish disciples like Kai Lai there are in the Dan Cauldron sect. If you want to stand on Yundan's side, then step forward boldly. There is no need to be afraid. The Dan Cauldron sect is an open sect. Everyone can express their position as much as you want. Just like Kai Lai. Shi Dengtian revealed a hypocritical smile. His smile made many people shiver. There was a malicious intent hidden under that smile, and it was an extreme threat. Shi Dingtian was the most feared branch master among all the disciples of the Dan Cauldron sect. When Shi Minghui was still alive, he had allowed Shi Minghui to do whatever he wanted. After Shi Minghui's death, almost all the disciples did not dare to go near him for fear of being severely punished. Now that Shi Dingtian had revealed a smile, no one felt that it was sincere. They also knew what that smile meant. Once one was targeted by his gaze, then the alchemist's career would come to an end. At this moment, the area around the ruins opening cauldron was already filled with people. They were all looking at their sect leader, who was about to be persecuted in shock and bewilderment. Looking at the only one who stood out to protect their sect leader, they were all tormented. Most of the Pill Cauldron sect disciples didn't want Shi Dingtian to be the sect master. But now, Shi Dingtian had invited two extreme immortals. Shi Dingtian's prestige made everyone fearful. Not all the Pill Cauldron sect disciples had the courage to die like Kai Lai. Danding's sect was silent. For a moment, no one dared to stand out. Shi Dingtian laughed wildly and looked at Kai Lai with a mocking expression. Kai Lai, it looks like there's no one else as foolish as you. Junior apprentice brother Yao, make it clear to everyone, and also tell your own disciple, who is qualified to be the sect leader under these circumstances. Yao Wuji clenched his fists tightly. His humble eyes were filled with endless hatred. He really wanted to kill Shi Dingtian just like that. But he knew his own abilities. With Qin Shange and Wan Shuiyao around, he had no chance. Yao Wuji slowly knelt down in front of Shi Dingtian. He buried his head in Shi Dingtian's feet. His eyes flashed with endless humiliation, but his voice was surprisingly calm. The only person who can take up the position of the sect leader of Danding's sect is naturally senior apprentice brother Shi. Yao Wuji closed his eyes. His heart was trembling. Doing something that was beyond his control made him feel extremely humiliated. But now, only he could protect the Pill Cauldron sect disciples. He couldn't let anything happen to him. All the Pill Cauldron sect disciples looked at Yao Wuji. Their hearts were filled with shock. In the eyes of many Pill Cauldron sect disciples, Yao Wuji was the easiest sect leader to get along with. He was decent and generous in handling matters. He didn't put on airs and treated all the disciples equally. He would never do anything improper. But when such a righteous sect leader knelt down, the other Pill Cauldron sect disciples understood that the Pill Cauldron sect had changed. Ha ha ha! Shi Dingtian laughed wildly. His laughter was so hypocritical that it echoed in the ears of all the Pill Cauldron sect disciples. Everyone felt a chill from the bottom of their hearts. Kai Lai, do you see this? Even your master is kneeling in front of me. What are you still resisting for? Kai Lai silently looked at Yao Wuji, who was kneeling in front of Shi Dingtian, and slowly closed his eyes. Then, he suddenly opened them, and a light flashed through his eyes. My master is a man of courage and principles. This cowardly man is not my master. This cowardly man is not my master. Yao Wuji's face instantly turned pale. Kai Lai's words were like a knife that stabbed into Yao Wuji's chest. His heart was bleeding. For the Pill Cauldron sect, he chose to endure humiliation. But now, he was called a coward by his own disciple. Yao Wuji's blood was boiling. For the future of Pill Cauldron sect, anyone could insult him. But he didn't want his most beloved disciple to look down on him. That was his disciple. To be looked down on by his own disciple, what a joke. But Kai Lai didn't understand. He didn't understand anything. Yao Wuji's 5 viscera and 6 bowels shrank into a ball. He also wanted to stand out and tell the truth. He wanted to sacrifice himself for justice. He wanted to live and die with Pill Cauldron sect. He wanted to stand in front of his disciple and be a person who would rather die than submit. But he couldn't. He didn't know when Muyu would come out. If Muyu spent a few months, then he had to be a controlled person for a few months. He had to protect the rest of Pill Cauldron sect from being harmed. Master, you raised me and taught me how to be a person. You are the person I respect the most in my heart. I thought that at this juncture, you would make a better choice than me. But I didn't expect you to become like this. You shouldn't be like this. I thought you had your own difficulties. But you kneeled in front of Sure Dang Tian. You made me feel strange. This shouldn't be you. No matter what difficulties you have, you shouldn't do such a disgraceful thing. Kai Lai was also trembling. Even his voice was trembling. What could have happened to make his master become a person who was afraid of death? He couldn't understand. At this moment of life and death for Pill Cauldron Sect, as a member of Pill Cauldron Sect, how could he be a person who knelt? Yao Wuji suppressed the grief and anger in his heart. He tried his best to keep his emotions unchanged. He tried his best to make himself look indifferent to Kai Lai's words. Master, I won't forget your kindness, but I have no way to repay you. Today, I know that I won't be able to live. My life will be used to repay your kindness of raising me for so many years. I don't want to be a coward. Let's sever all ties. Kai Lai's words were resolute. Sever all ties. Yao Wuji was stunned. It was as if he had been struck by lightning. It was as if there was a rock in his chest that was pressing down on him, making him unable to move. It was as if an invisible hand was strangling his neck, making him unable to breathe. It was as if someone had hollowed out his heart, making him lose the entire world. His most beloved disciple had said such words to sever all ties. It was as if his soul had been shattered. He lowered his head. It was as if there was a wild beast in his chest that was about to rush out and tear Sure Deng Tian into pieces. He wanted to rush out and stand beside his disciple. He wanted to tell Kai Lai loudly what kind of person he was. He wanted to rush out and fight for Pill Cauldron Sect. Sever all ties? But Yao Wuji did not allow himself to tremble. He did not want others to notice that something was wrong with him, because he had to survive. He had to survive to protect the rest of Pill Cauldron Sect. He could not speak of the bitterness in his heart. He could not tell the truth to his respected senior brother Yundan. He could not tell the truth to his disciple who did not understand. Sure Dingtian looked at Kai Lai, then looked at the motionless Yao Wuji kneeling at his feet. He smiled and said, Junior brother Yao, Kai Lai is such a rebellious disciple. I will take it as cleaning up the sect for you. No. Yao Wuji raised his head and said sincerely, Senior brother, please give Kai Lai a chance. Don't hurt him. He is young and hot-headed. I will definitely make him change. Yao Wuji could not let anything happen to Kai Lai. Such a disciple must not be harmed. Shut up. You have no right to speak here. Wan Shuiyao suddenly turned around and said coldly, Yes. Yao Wuji lowered his head again. He clenched his fists. His fingernails had already pierced deep into his skin. Dark red blood flowed out. He felt so powerless. He could not protect the sect. He could not protect his senior brother. He could not protect his own disciple. Sure Dingtian looked at Kai Lai lazily and said, Since there is no one here, we will not waste any more time. Senior brother Yundan, you can only stay with Kai Lai and me. Another person suddenly flew out from the crowd of Pill Cauldron Sect disciples. This was a cultured and refined young man. His face was fair and clean. He was Taoist Yundan's second disciple, Bi Wenshuan. Wenshuan, you. Taoist Yundan was stunned. Master, I am sorry. I came too late. Bi Wenshuan bowed to his master. Then he turned to Kai Lai and said, Junior brother Kai Lai, next time you must tell me the fastest way to break free from the seal of the cliff of reflection. I am not good at breaking out of prison. Kai Lai forced a smile and said, Senior brother, I have done this more than you. I have experience. Bi Wenshuan stood beside Taoist Yundan. His expression was calm. He did not care much about life and death. Wenshuan, since you have stepped forward, you will be like Kai Lai. There is no turning back. Do you understand? Taoist Yundan sighed. Master and junior brother Kai Lai are not afraid of death. Why should I be? Bi Wenshuan's gaze was still very amiable. Good, good, good. Taoist Yundan laughed heartily. With such a disciple and nephew, he had no regrets in life. Sure Dengtian looked at Bi Wenshuan and laughed mockingly. Very good. Another person who has done something stupid. Who else? Don't worry. Step forward. I am very patient. As long as they dared to step forward, he would kill them all. It was better than killing them all in one fell swoop. Me too. The most famous female disciple of Freezing Peak, Dao Yiye, stepped forward from the crowd. Her aura was the same as Lung Bingshue's. She looked unapproachable. However, her expression was very serious. The first thing she said when she saw Kai Lai was, "Senior brother Kai Lai, you should have told us the fastest way to break free from the seal." Lung Bingshue was not around. Daoist Yin Dan could not bear to see anything happen to Dao Yiye. Hence, he punished Dao Yiye to the cliff of reflection. Me too. I was just a little late and missed so many things. This time, it was Daoist Yuan Hua who stepped forward. "Uncle Master." Daoist Yin Dan smiled bitterly. "You did the right thing. It is a pity that Yuan Sheng is not back yet. I don't know where he went. Otherwise, I would have let him see his useless disciple and good grand disciple." Daoist Yuan Hua patted Kai Lai's shoulder and looked at Yao Wuji in the distance. He shook his head and sighed. Daoist Yuan Hua was Daoist Yuan Da's junior brother. He was also someone who had received Mu Yu's favor. He had been in seclusion to break through to the tribulation passing stage. However, with such a big thing happening in the Pill Cauldron sect, he had no choice but to come out early. Kai Lai looked at his master who was kneeling in the distance. He was in a daze. In his impression, his master was not a person who was afraid of death. However, he had done such a thing today. However, Kai Lai believed that he had done the right thing. He did not want to live while the Pill Cauldron sect was controlled by outsiders. For the sake of justice, he told his master that he would cut ties with him. His heart was also in torment. He hoped that his master would stand on his side and fight against Shi Dengtian with them. Even if he died, he should die a worthy death. At least he should die standing and not live kneeling. However, what Kai Lai did not understand was that his master was kneeling for the future of the Pill Cauldron sect. He was kneeling to protect the other outstanding disciples of the Pill Cauldron sect from Shi Dengtian. As long as his master lived, the Pill Cauldron sect would have a chance to survive. Very good. Even Martial Uncle Yuan Hua is so stubborn. Who else is there? Shi Dengtian continued asking. Me. Another elder stood up. Me. A disciple of the Freezing Peak stood up. A disciple of the Pill Cauldron Peak stood up. A disciple of the Black Rainbow Peak stood up. It was as if the loyalty of Kai Lai and the others had ignited the sense of responsibility that a disciple of the Pill Cauldron sect should have. In the blink of an eye, more than 800 disciples of the Pill Cauldron sect stood behind Daoist Yin Dan, facing off against Shi Dengtian. They would rather be like Daoist Yin Dan, choosing to live and die with the Pill Cauldron sect. They were not willing to live under Shi Dengtian's threat. Daoist Yin Dan was gratified in his heart, but he also lamented. These were all loyal disciples of the Pill Cauldron sect. They were willing to sacrifice their lives for the Pill Cauldron sect. They were not afraid of death, but because of their own choice, they had ruined their future. Yao Wuji looked at the 800 people in a daze. He had endured the humiliation and had knelt at Shi Dengtian's feet. He wanted to live as a control person. In the future, he wanted to secretly protect these 800 outstanding disciples so that they would not be easily bullied by Shi Dengtian. But now, the people he wanted to protect had already decided to sacrifice themselves for justice. They had chosen to live and die with the Pill Cauldron sect. If these people died, what hope did the Pill Cauldron sect have? Chapter 9:12. Shi Dengtian's expression had changed from the initial arrogance to an incomparably gloomy one. He never expected that so many people would actually stand out to oppose him. It was as if they were challenging his dignity, which made him feel incomparably furious. The remaining disciples were still watching. Bi Wenxuan, who was standing beside Daoist Cloudpill, suddenly looked at Lin Tianyu, who was standing in the crowd. Bi Wenxuan frowned. "Senior apprentice brother, why are you standing there?" Bi Wenxuan asked in a deep voice. Lin Tianyu didn't stand out. He wasn't one of the 800 or so people. He was just watching. Daoist Cloudpill also turned his gaze to Lin Tianyu. Suddenly, he sighed. Lin Tianyu's expression wavered. He was avoiding Daoist Cloudpill and Bi Wenxuan's gazes. A few days ago, he and Bi Wenxuan were imprisoned by Taoist Cloudpill at the Cliff of Reflection. He had already guessed what would happen today. Lien Tianyu was Taoist Cloudpill's eldest disciple. However, he was different from Bi Wenxuan. He didn't have the courage to stand out. He didn't have the courage to face death. Lien Tianyu was the eldest disciple of the younger generation of the Danding School. He was known as the #1 disciple of the Danding School. He still had a long future ahead of him. His talent in alchemy was even higher. He was only 28 years old this year, but he was already at the 9th layer of the spirit severing stage. In time, he would be able to step into the body integration stage and become the youngest rank 7 alchemist in the history of the Danding School. He was highly valued by Taoist Cloudpill and was being groomed as the next sect master. If today's incident hadn't happened, Lien Tianyu's future path would have been smooth sailing. He would have become an influential figure in the cultivation world, respected by everyone. However, Lien Tianyu didn't dare to stand out. He wasn't willing to end his path as an alchemist. He wasn't willing to die for justice with Taoist Cloudpill, Kai Lai, and the others. He believed that with his talent, Shi Dengtian would also rely on him. As long as he stood on Shi Dengtian's side, he would still have a chance to become the Danding School's sect master after Shi Dengtian abdicated. Junior brother, I have my own plans. Lien Tianyu clenched his teeth and said. When he was punished by Taoist Cloudpill to the Cliff of Reflection, Lien Tianyu guessed what would happen to the Pill Cauldron sect. He also knew that Taoist Cloudpill was protecting him, but he didn't want to die with him. He originally wanted to stay at the Cliff of Reflection and wait for this matter to pass. However, Bi Wenxuan came and dragged him here. At this moment, Bi Wenxuan was asking him a question. Everyone was looking at him, making him feel extremely uncomfortable. Shi Dengtian also noticed Lien Tianyu in the crowd. He suddenly laughed and waved his hand at Lien Tianyu, saying, Lien Tianyu, it seems like you don't want to stand on your master's side. Then stand out and express your attitude. Lien Tianyu slowly came to Shi Dengtian's side and looked at Taoist Yundan. Sorry, master, I don't want to die. I'm willing to support Senior Uncle Shi as the sect master. Lien Tianyu didn't hesitate to kneel down in front of Shi Dengtian. I'm willing to follow Senior Uncle Shi. As the eldest senior brother of the Pill Cauldron sect's younger generation, Lien Tianyu's choice was undoubtedly crucial. He was Taoist Cloudpill's disciple, but he betrayed him at this time. This undoubtedly gave the other disciples of the Pill Cauldron sect an excuse to be afraid of death. If even the eldest senior brother made this choice, then how could they make the wrong choice? Taoist Cloudpill sighed in his heart. Only in times of danger could one clearly see a person's true nature. Lien Tianyu and Bi Wenxuan made different choices, making him feel disappointed. As the eldest senior brother, Lien Tianyu had all kinds of dazzling halos around him. He was also a future candidate for the Pill Cauldron sect's position. Lien Tianyu wasn't willing to let these things leave him, so he chose to side with Shi Dengtian. Only this way, Lien Tianyu could continue to be the respected eldest senior brother of the Pill Cauldron sect. Shi Dengtian laughed proudly. Cloudpill, your disciple, is someone who knows how to adapt to circumstances. This was a very strange scene. Taoist Cloudpill and Kai Lai chose to die, but Yao Wuji and Lien Tianyu chose to submit. The two pairs of master and disciple made different choices, but among the 4 people, the disciple and the master stood on different sides and made different choices. However, Yao Wuji knelt because he wanted to endure the humiliation, but Lien Tianyu knelt because he was afraid of death. Unfortunately, no one on the scene understood Yao Wuji and thought that he was a coward. Who else? Hurry up and step out. I can't wait to punish some idiots. Shi Dengtian laughed coldly. He was ready to pull in the net. Shi Dengtian scanned the people standing behind Taoist Cloudpill. These 800 people were the elites of the Pill Cauldron sect. They were also the outstanding disciples and high-ranking alchemists of their respective factions. They were the pillars that held up the Pill Cauldron sect. It could be said that the future of the Pill Cauldron sect rested on their shoulders. But now, these people had all chosen to stand on Taoist Yundan's side, instead of following Shi Dengtian, an alchemist who wanted to rise to the top. Their faces were filled with unswerving determination, as if death was insignificant in their eyes. This look of indifference towards death was as if they were mocking Shi Dangtian, mocking him for overestimating himself. People could die in many ways. When they were alive, very few people would consider how they died. However, when they were forced to make a choice, some people would choose to live and some would choose to die for justice. Daoist Cloudpill looked at the people behind him and felt both sad and proud. At least not everyone in the Pill Cauldron sect was afraid of death. It was just a pity that these talented disciples had to die with him. They should have had a bright future ahead of them, but they had to die with him. Shi Dangtian, do you still not understand? You can't win the hearts of people by using force. Daoist Cloudpill laughed proudly. Shi Dangtian shouted coldly. Daoist Cloudpill, as the sect leader, do you only have the hearts of 800 people? Our Pill Cauldron sect has more than 6,000 people, but only 800 people support you. Don't you think it's too ironic? The Pill Cauldron sect was a big sect, but it was only a big sect in name. In fact, the entire Pill Cauldron sect had less than 6,000 people, because the Pill Cauldron sect had very strict requirements for accepting disciples. Not everyone was qualified to become a disciple of the Pill Cauldron sect. Adhering to the principle of better quality than substandard, the total number of people in the Pill Cauldron sect couldn't be compared with the other 8 sections. However, the reason why the Pill Cauldron sect could survive until now was not because of the advantage of numbers, but because of their respected alchemy skills. This time, because something big had happened in the Pill Cauldron sect, almost all the elders and disciples of the Pill Cauldron sect who were outside rushed back. Today, except for some people who couldn't make it back in time, basically all of them were present. Only 800 people stood out of more than 5,000 people, which was very ironic to Shi Dangtian. Daoist Cloudpill laughed. You're wrong. The reason why our Pill Cauldron sect can stand in the cultivation world for thousands of years is because of the people behind me who dare to sacrifice themselves for justice, not a treacherous villain like you. Take a look for yourself. Without the people behind me, how good can the Pill Cauldron sect be under your leadership? Shi Dangtian's gaze swept across the faces behind Daoist Cloudpill, and he became angrier and angrier. Daoist Cloudpill was right. The disciples behind him, whether they were disciples or elders, were all outstanding alchemists from other sections. Most of these 800 people had very high talent, while the remaining 5,000 people had been threatened by Shi Dangtian. Many of them were disciples who had just entered the sect and were assigned to the 100 herb halls in the various cities to be appraisers. They were not even considered alchemists. Among the 800 people who stood out, there were no less than 300 alchemists of the 5th rank and above, dozens of 6th rank alchemists, and 4 7th rank alchemists. Almost all of them were the core members of the Pill Cauldron sect. Once these people died, the Pill Cauldron sect would suffer a serious blow. It was impossible to support the Pill Cauldron sect with just Shi Dangtian's own sect and the remaining low-level alchemists. Do you want to kill these people? Qian Shange asked indifferently. As a member of the Third Palace, he didn't care about the life and death of these people. He was only here to deal with the trouble for Shi Dangtian so that he could control the entire Pill Cauldron sect. Shi Dangtian gritted his teeth, and a fierce look flashed in his eyes. Kill. If he let these people go at this time, it would undoubtedly be an affirmation of Daoist Cloudpill's leadership and a denial of Shi Dangtian's authority. If he let these people live, they would create countless troubles for him in the future. Instead of that, he might as well get rid of them directly, even if he had to cut off one of his arms. Daoist Hong Yuan asked hesitantly, Shi Dangtian, have you thought about how much loss it will be to our Pill Cauldron sect if we kill these 800 people? What will the cultivation world think of our Pill Cauldron sect? Although Daoist Hong Yuan was being controlled, he still looked at this matter from the standpoint of the Danding sect. If the Danding sect lost more than 800 people, it would undoubtedly deal a heavy blow to the reputation of the Danding sect at a time when they were already being questioned by the cultivation world. The status of our Pill Cauldron sect's alchemist has always been extremely high. No matter how much the cultivation world doubts us, they wouldn't dare to be disrespectful to us. I don't believe that without these people, our pill cauldron sect's legacy can be broken. Sure, Deng Tian snorted coldly. Yao Wuji had already stood up silently. He lowered his head, and no one could see his expression. At this moment, sure, Deng Tian and the others didn't care about Yao Wuji. In their eyes, Yao Wuji, who was being controlled, was insignificant. However, Yao Wuji had already clenched his fist. In his fist, there was a 7th-level pill that was overflowing with spiritual energy. With Shi Dongtian's words, Daoist Hong Yuan and Daoist Hong, he didn't say anything else. They were only being controlled by Qian Shange and Wan Shuiyao to support Shi Dengtian. As for how to deal with these people, it was naturally up to Shi Dengtian to decide. The soul power of an alchemist is extremely strong. 800 people is not a small force. Qian Shange stretched out his hand indifferently. His hand suddenly emitted a holy light. As soon as this light appeared, everyone present felt an indescribable sense of reverence. It was as if Qian Shange was carrying out a judgment of justice and was doing the right thing. Chapter 9:13. As soon as the white light appeared, the sky above the Pill Cauldron School suddenly changed. An incomparably terrifying vortex seemed to have appeared in the sky, as if it wanted to suck the entire world into that vortex. Everyone in the Pill Cauldron School was shocked. No one dared to move. Under this vortex, they felt that as long as they moved, their entire bodies would be sucked into that vortex. This way, not a single bit of soul power can escape. Qian Shange seemed to be talking to himself. Then, a beam of light suddenly shot out from the whirlpool and fell from the sky, trapping all 800 people. The beam of light sank deep into the ground, like a cage, making it impossible for these 800 people to escape. Then, the whirlpool trembled again, and a bolt of lightning fell. This bolt of lightning was a few hundred meters thick. It was like a terrifying breath from the sky. It came so fast, so sacred, yet so destructive. It enveloped Daoist Yundan and the others. Looks like the heavens really want my Danding sect to die. Daoist Yundan was also shocked by this bolt of lightning. No one had ever seen such a scene. Even as the sect leader of the Danding sect, he had never seen such a terrifying attack. He did not doubt that once this bolt of lightning struck, there would be nothing left of the 800 people in an instant. The attention of everyone in the Pill Cauldron sect was attracted by this lightning that was like a heavenly tribulation. Even Shi Dengtian was no exception. He also looked at this lightning with shock in his heart. The methods of the Third Layer Palace were indeed not something that the major sects in the cultivation world could resist. The expressions of the disciples behind Daoist Yundan were also shocked by this lightning, but none of them flinched. They brazenly welcomed death without fear. The moment they stepped out, they knew that today would not be a good day, but which one of them who dared to step out was afraid of death? Master, I'm sorry. At the last moment, Kailai did not look at the bolt of lightning. Instead, he turned his gaze to Yao Wuji, the person who had raised him for more than 10 years. He did not understand why his usually upright and humble master would become a coward who was afraid of death. He felt very guilty for saying such heartless words to his master just now. He wanted to see his master one more time before he died, even if his master had become a stranger. But when he saw the figure behind Shi Dengtian, he was even more shocked than when he saw the destructive lightning. The white lightning attracted everyone's attention, but there were only 2 people present who did not look at it. That was Yao Wuji and Kailai. Yao Wuji had already swallowed the level 7-9 revolving pill in his hand. Apart from Kailai, no one else had noticed his actions. His entire body's aura had risen explosively in an instant. He had actually broken through to the form synthesis stage. An incomparably sharp blade appeared in Yao Wuji's hand. The aura of the elixir surged through his entire body. Powerful spiritual energy gathered on the sharp blade, bringing about an almost inaudible sound, like the sigh of the grim reaper. This sharp blade was the weapon he had prepared long ago to assassinate Shi Dangtian. It was covered with a powerful poison. This poison was called blood evil, which was left behind by the dead tree. With his spiritual power, as long as it pierced Shi Dangtian's body, it would spread throughout his blood in 2 breaths, and he would die in half a quarter of an hour. Even with Shi Dangtian's body integration stage cultivation base, he was unable to detoxify this poison. The sharp blade flashed through the air like a shadow, cutting straight towards Shi Dangtian's heart. If these 800 people die, then there's no need for the Pill Cauldron sect to continue to exist. The murderous intent in Yao Wuji's heart was released without reservation. He had endured this humiliation for the sake of protecting these 800 people from Shi Dangtian's clutches. But if these 800 people were to die under this lightning, then he would no longer need to pretend. Kill Shi Dangtian. As long as Shi Dangtian was killed, Shi Dangtian would be buried with these 800 people. Then, Yao Wuji would have no regrets even if he were to be killed. Master! Kai Lai's eyes widened. In the crowd, Yao Wuji's expression was so resolute, so fearless and unafraid of death. He was completely different from the coward who had bowed and scraped before Shi Dangtian. Could it be? Kai Lai seemed to have realized something. He could clearly feel that a vengeful tiger was about to rush out from his master's body, rush out of his chest, possess the sharp blade in his hand, and pierce through the body of this treacherous villain, Shi Dangtian, to destroy everything that Shi Dangtian wanted to take away. He had never seen his master have such a shocking, murderous intent before. In his eyes, his master's frail body had suddenly become so stalwart, like a tall mountain. His heart trembled as he suddenly understood something. Yao Wuji's sharp blade was about to pierce through Shi Dangtian's sinful chest when a hand suddenly reached out from the side and grabbed Yao Wuji's hand tightly, preventing his sharp blade from going any further. Wan Shuiyao's hand had stopped Yao Wuji's assassination attempt and destroyed his hope. No! Yao Wuji was extremely angry. His sharp blade was only a millimeter away from Shi Dangtian's back. Just a millimeter more, and his sharp blade would have pierced through Shi Dangtian's body, pierced through Shi Dangtian's filthy heart, and sent Shi Dangtian and these 800 people to die with him. You actually broke free from the control of the divine soul array. Wan Shuiyao frowned. With a twist of his hand, Yao Wuji's entire arm was twisted and his bones were instantly broken. Wan Shuiyao's cultivation was at the crossing calamity stage and was not something that Yao Wuji could resist. He sent out another palm strike and slammed it into Yao Wuji's chest. Yao Wuji's ribs were broken and his entire chest caved in. Asterisk Pucci. Asterisk unresigned blood splattered in the air, dyeing Yao Wuji's white beard and long robes red. His eyes also turned red. He could not kill Shi Dangtian with his own hands. Master! Everything happened in the blink of an eye. The lightning in the sky blasted towards them, but Kai Lai did not care at all. He saw his master flying backwards with heavy injuries, and his eyes turned red. When Wan Shuiyao's palm landed on Yao Wuji's body, it was as if it had landed on Kai Lai's chest, causing his entire body to tremble. He wanted to save his master, but he was so weak that he couldn't do anything. He was trapped in the pillar of light, and above his head was the destructive white lightning. Despair spread in his heart. However, at this moment, a voice filled with endless anger spread throughout the entire Pill Cauldron sect. Trash of the Third Palace, you all deserve to die. This voice was soul-stirring, like a huge bell ringing in everyone's mind. It was even more shocking than the lightning in the sky. The Pill Cauldron Array seal on Taoist Yundan's body suddenly emitted an ancient aura. Following that, the Pill Cauldron Array seal automatically flew out and circled in the air. The 300-meter-tall Pill Cauldron behind him once again connected with the Pill Cauldron Array seal. An ancient brilliance spread out from the Pill Cauldron sect, transforming into lines of array runes that quickly spread out. With Taoist Yundan as the center, it instantly enveloped the 800 people. At this moment, a 1,000-meter-long sword Qi came from the east. A green light rose from the ground and cut through the clouds in the sky, as if it wanted to split open a crack in the sky. The surging sword chi could destroy the heavens and the earth. It was insufferably arrogant. It was even more powerful than the vortex in the sky. The sword chi swept past, creating a strong hurricane. Those pill cauldron sect disciples who did not step forward were sent flying far away. Blood splattered everywhere in the air. However, no one cared about their lives. The sword chi had already struck the lightning. Boom! As the sword chi swallowed and spat out, it released a 1,000-meter-long ripple of array runes. The originally unstoppable lightning was instantly torn into nothingness in front of the sword chi. It was like snow melting and disappearing. However, the sword chi's momentum did not decrease. It continued to fly towards the vortex in the sky. Wong! The earth quaked and the mountains shook. The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The vortex in the sky was shattered by this terrifying sword chi. Countless black cracks appeared in the sky, as if it could not withstand this terrifying power. However, the cracks disappeared in an instant. The sky once again surged with wind and clouds, as if it could not calm down after being struck by the sword chi. A figure stepped out from the distance. However, this step seemed to have crossed the vast space and time. A wave of array runes appeared in the air. It was as if he was stepping on everyone's hearts. The steps were incomparably heavy, but also so light. When he appeared again, he was already beside Yao Wuji, supporting him firmly. "Grandmaster Yao, leave the rest to me." Muyu silently looked at the old man in front of him. This was a senior who was willing to endure humiliation and even bear infamy in order to protect the future of the Pill Cauldron sect. When he realized that he could not protect the future of the Pill Cauldron sect, he was determined to kill Shi Dangtian. He had removed a huge threat for the Pill Cauldron sect. Such a person was worthy of respect. "Muyu, you." Yao Wuji's murky eyes were filled with uncontrollable agitation. He had placed all his hopes on Muyu. He wanted to play the role of being controlled and wait for Muyu to return. Even if Kai Lai misunderstood him, even if everyone thought that he was a coward, he did not care. He only hoped that the Pill Cauldron sect would be able to survive this calamity. Now that he finally saw a ray of hope, the stone in Yao Wuji's heart suddenly fell to the ground. "Tell Kai Lai that I am proud of him." Blood flowed from the corner of Yao Wuji's mouth. The ribs in his chest had been broken, and even his internal organs had been displaced. Wan Shuiyao's palm strike had almost taken his life. However, he did not regret it. As long as he could see this ray of hope, he would not regret it even if he died. Kai Lai had misunderstood him and thought that his master was a coward. This was the only regret in his heart. In his heart, he did not blame Kai Lai. On the contrary, he felt very gratified. This was because Kai Lai had remembered everything he had taught him and carried it out fearlessly. Even at the last moment, when Kai Lai had said that he would cut off all ties with him, he still felt proud. "It's a pity that I cannot tell Kai Lai the truth personally. I even have to bear the infamy of being a coward." Sigh. The Grandmaster Yao still could not let go of Kai Lai's words. His eyelids became very heavy and blood flowed from his mouth again. His biggest regret was that Kai Lai had misunderstood him. However, he believed that Muyu could save the Pill Cauldron sect. That was enough. Chapter 9:14. Master Alchemist, you are not someone who is afraid of death. Muyu silently lifted Yao Wuji's body in the air. His hand brushed across Yao Wuji's body, and a stream of spirit energy entered his body. Then, he turned around and came to Kai Lai's side, handing Yao Wuji over to Kai Lai. "Master, master," Kai Lai murmured as he looked at his master. His mind was blank. Yao Wuji's body was dyed red with blood. It was a ghastly sight in his eyes. "Remember, your master is not someone who is afraid of death, nor is he a coward." Muyu's right hand gripped Kai Lai's shoulder tightly as he said in a low voice, "Master, I'm sorry. It's my fault. It's all my fault." The moment Master Alchemist took out the sharp blade, Kai Lai understood what his master was doing. He understood that his master, who was supposed to be upright, would not be someone who was afraid of death. But he had taken things for granted and naively thought that his master had become another person. His heart was filled with regret, and he wanted to slap himself a few times. "Master, wake up!" Kai Lai hugged Yao Wuji's body. In an instant, tears fell like rain. He knew that he had misunderstood his master. He should have known. He should have known that his master was not someone who was afraid of death. He should have known that his master must have had his reasons for doing what he did. However, he did not discover anything. He had even misunderstood his master and said such cruel words. Mu Yu slowly said, "There are many types of great people. Those who sacrifice themselves for justice are one type. Those who endure humiliation are another type." He looked at Taoist Yundan. Taoist Yundan was also looking at him in shock. Everyone was looking at him in shock. No one would have thought that the person who would appear at the last moment would be Mu Yu. It was Deadwood Evergreen's disciple, Mu Yu. "Sect Master, take good care of Master Alchemist. He is not someone who is afraid of death. He endured humiliation in order to protect the juniors of the Pill Cauldron School from being harmed by Shi Dengtian." Mu Yu said softly, "Brother Yao." Taoist Yundan was stunned. His gaze landed on Yao Wuji, whose bones were all broken. Only then did he understand Yao Wuji's intentions. The people behind him also looked at Yao Wuji in shock. Master Pharmacist is a brave man. Mu Yu did not explain anything. When Taoist Yundan saw Mu Yu appear, he was extremely excited. When he saw Mu Yu actually shatter the insufferably arrogant lightning in the sky with a single sword strike, he was extremely shocked. Now that Mu Yu had said such a thing, no one doubted it. Yuanhua hurriedly took out a pill and fed it to Yao Wuji. Mu Yu, Taoist Cloud Core, looked at Mu Yu and suddenly recalled something. He had also sensed that the Cauldron Array seal was being controlled by Mu Yu. His expression changed immediately. "You obtained a ruins opening cauldron. I'm just borrowing it temporarily." Mu Yu turned around, the shadow sword in his hand surging. He took a step forward and stood in front of Qian Shange and Wan Shuiyao. Everyone from the third palace deserves to die. Mu Yu looked coldly at the hooded Qian Shange and Wan Shuiyao in black robes. He swung his sword. The sword Qi was awe-inspiring, piercing through the void and sweeping towards them. Whoosh! Qian Shange and Wan Shuiyao immediately brought Shi Dengtian and the rest to retreat, avoiding Mu Yu's sword. "This is the sword Qi of the Nine Temptations, Heavenly Sword. I didn't expect it to appear here." Qian Shange laughed, as if he had found his prey. His laughter was filled with a desire to capture Mu Yu. Even though Mu Yu was still invisible to him and Wan Shuiyao, he could only feel Mu Yu's killing intent and the place where Mu Yu attacked. He could not see Mu Yu's body, but this was enough. This was because, according to the information they received, Mu Yu's blood shrouding the heavens was no longer perfect. Their soul power could already hurt Mu Yu. But what made Qian Shange and Wan Shuiyao feel strange was that Mu Yu did not have any killing intent on him. There was only an awe-inspiring killing intent. They felt that Mu Yu was not relying on his killing intent, but Mu Yu's killing intent. "I'm here to kill 3 people." Mu Yu's gaze swept across Qian Shange and Wan Shuiyao, and finally landed on Shi Dengtian. His heart was filled with endless anger. Deadwood's father had met with an accident because of Shi Dengtian's assistance. Grandmaster Alchemist had suffered humiliation for the sake of the Pill Cauldron School. Mu Yu would never let Shi Dengtian live. The moment Shi Dengtian saw Mu Yu appear, he was extremely shocked. The current Mu Yu's aura was as boundless as the sea. He was far from being able to deal with him. "My lord, it's Mu Yu." Shi Dengtian's eyes were also filled with resentment. His most beloved grandson, Shi Minghui, had died at the hands of Mu Yu. Now, Mu Yu had appeared again when he was about to take over the position of the alchemy sex head. He had disrupted his overall situation, causing the resentment in his heart to deepen. "Don't worry. A wanted criminal has come to our door. We will capture him well." Qian Shange stared at Mu Yu's direction. There was a very powerful aura there, like the moon in the darkness. Even if they could not see it, they could still feel it. As long as they could feel it, they could deal with Muyu. However, at this moment, Muyu's aura suddenly disappeared. It was as if a dark cloud had appeared in the darkness and covered the moon, causing Qian Shange and Wan Shuiyao to lose their perception of Muyu. Muyu did not disappear. He was still standing in the same place. Everyone in the alchemy sect could see him. Only Qian Shange and Wan Shuiyao could not see him. He had already sealed his murderous aura. At this moment, he was borrowing the power of the ruins opening cauldron. Facing two extreme immortals in the tribulation passing stage, Muyu did not underestimate them, even if he silently placed his sword on their necks. As long as he channeled his spiritual energy, the other party would be able to block it in a state of alert. Muyu slowly walked in the air, walking towards Qian Shange as if he was walking on flat ground. The aura on his body was very stable, and there was no abnormality. As long as he did not reveal his murderous intent, Qian Shange and Wan Shuiyao would not be able to find his position. When Shi Dangtian saw Muyu walking over, he was scared out of his wits. He shouted in panic, "My lord, he's here!" As he spoke, a sword aura swept out from Muyu's hand, quickly heading towards Shi Dangtian. He wanted to kill Shi Dangtian first. However, 12 white pearls suddenly appeared around Qian Shange. These 12 pearls instantly connected with each other. Holy white light bloomed from the pearls, protecting Shi Dangtian. At this moment, Wan Shuiyao raised his hand. Countless white light spots floated out from his surroundings. Like white dust, they quickly covered the entire alchemy sect. Muyu stopped and frowned slightly. The white dust did not seem to have any lethality, but when he moved, it would also bring the white dust with him. "Muyu, do you think we can't deal with you just because you have the blood protection covering the sky? As soon as you move, we will know where you are. This time, let's see how you can use the blood protection covering the sky to play hide and seek with us." Qian Shange laughed loudly. "So that's how it is." Muyu stretched out his hand and swept the dust around him. As soon as he moved, the white dust would move with him, reflecting his movements clearly. The people of the third palace had obviously found a way to deal with the blood protection covering the sky. Muyu nodded thoughtfully. Then his whole body once again erupted with a shocking killing intent. "Then I don't need to hide. I'll just kill you all directly." Muyu raised the sword in his hand. The sword's edge lit up with a green light. An 8 trigrams formation pattern surrounded the shadow sword. It rotated and flowed like flowing water, but it was also suffused with killing intent. Qian Shange felt Muyu's killing intent. With the addition of the white dust, he already knew Muyu's movements and position. The pearls around him once again glowed with brilliance. Shi Dangtian shouted anxiously, "My lord, kill this brat. How dare he speak such arrogant words?" "Arrogant words? Did he say anything?" Wan Shuiyao suddenly asked. Shi Dangtian did not know why Qian Shange asked this. He did not know that Muyu had the blood protection covering the sky, but he still nodded. Wan Shuiyao suddenly said to Qian Shange, "Qian Shange, don't let your guard down. This matter is obviously not right. We can't hear him speak." The intelligence said that we can hear him speak. How can this be? Qian Shange had indeed found something strange. Just now, he was only sensing Muyu's position and did not hear Muyu speak. Of course, they could not hear Muyu speak. Previously, Jin Shiyun and the others could hear Muyu speak because Muyu's meridians contained soul power, causing a flaw in the blood protection covering the sky. Now that Muyu had sealed his soul power and killing power, the flaw in the blood protection covering the sky was repaired. Filthy bug. Muyu's shadow clone sword drew a cold light in the air. It was incomparably sharp. The sword light flashed with powerful and mysterious runes, transforming into a green brilliance. The brilliance rose from the ground and shredded the clouds in the sky, bringing with it a fierce astral wind. When the sword was slashed out, it was as if thousands of swords were slashed out. The sword shadows flew and sword chi filled the sky. The entire sky above the Danding sect trembled nonstop. The earth shook and the mountains shook causing the faces of everyone in the Danding sect to change again. Mu Yu's strength was clearly beyond everyone's imagination. "Brat, if you dare to fight the two of us alone, I will capture you and hand you over to the Lord." The two of them suddenly jumped up, and white pearls lit up around their bodies. Wan Shuiyao had 12 pearls around him, and Qian Shange had 11 pearls around him. Obviously, Qian Shange was more powerful. These soul pearls emitted a white light. The soul power was awe-inspiring, causing ripples in people's minds. It was incomparably sacred. Soul technique Luo Yin, Windbreak. A white pearl in front of Qian Shange erupted with an incomparably powerful aura. White soul power bloomed from the pearl and soared into the sky, illuminating everyone in the Danding sect. They looked at the sacred white light and could not help but feel an inexplicable sense of reverence in their hearts. Chapter 9:15. Mu Yu's figure appeared in front of the white spear in the blink of an eye. Qian Shange seemed to have predicted Mu Yu's attack. His spear was not aimed at the Shadow Clone Sword, but at Mu Yu's body. At the same time, a white shield burst out from a white pearl next to him, blocking in front of him. He was very confident in his white spear and white shield. If Mu Yu forced the sword to come down, he would definitely be pierced by his white spear. Qian Shange was confident that he could block Mu Yu's sword. "You're too naive." Mu Yu's eyes flashed with a mysterious light. The sword in his hand did not slow down, and he stabbed towards Qian Shange. At the same time, the white spear directly penetrated his body, but it only penetrated his body. The white spear seemed to be very powerful, but it did not cause any damage to Mu Yu. How can this be? Qian Shange clearly felt that something was wrong. Mu Yu did not have any intention of dodging. His white spear penetrated his opponent's body, but he felt as if his white spear had pierced through the air. At this time, Mu Yu's sword chi was already coming down on him. The sword chi was awe-inspiring, and it blasted on Qian Shange's white shield. However, Qian Shange's white shield was directly penetrated by Mu Yu's sword chi, and the sword chi continued to slash towards Qian Shange's body. The white shield could not block Mu Yu's sword chi. "Be careful!" Wan Shuiyao pulled Qian Shange back in time, and he dodged Mu Yu's killing blow. According to Qian Shange's expectations, his white shield should have blocked the sword chi. With his cultivation level, he would not lose to Mu Yu. "What's going on? Why can't we hurt him?" Qian Shange was careless and almost got killed by Mu Yu. Thinking back on the incident, he felt a lingering fear. If it were not for Wan Shuiyao, he would have been dead by now. The information was probably wrong. The blood protection shrouding sky is still in effect on him. Wan Shuiyao looked more mature than Qian Shange. He thought more than Qian Shange. Until Mu Yu appeared, he didn't hear Mu Yu's voice, so he knew something was wrong. However, haven't you noticed? Just now, his sword chi seemed to be only at the form synthesis stage. He didn't use any killing power. When Qian Shange recalled that he had almost been injured by the sword chi of a body integration stage cultivator, he was quite annoyed. He only has killing intent and no killing power. I believe that in order for the blood protection shrouding heaven to be effective, he paid the price of not using the power of slaughter. Without the power of slaughter, he is just a cultivator at the form synthesis stage. "Han Yuan, Hong Yi, you two go and take down Mu Yu." Qian Shange shouted. "Yes." Han Yuan and Hong Yi replied respectfully. Although they were not powerful alchemists, they were still self-cultivators at the crossing calamity stage. If Qian Shange and Wan Shuiyao could not hurt Mu Yu, these two would be more than enough to deal with her. Mu Yu had used his powerful sword will to imprison all his killing power and soul power. He didn't want to rely on the power of slaughter anymore. Without the power of slaughter, he felt like he had returned to himself. His whole body became extremely relaxed. He liked this feeling because this was the real him. However, if he didn't use the power of slaughter, he would only be at the form synthesis stage. This time, he had to face two elders at the crossing calamity stage as a form synthesis stage cultivator. Both Taoist Hong Yuan and Taoist Hong you were brimming with killing intent. They had each taken out a horsetail whisk. The horsetail whisks elongated in the wind, and in an instant, they turned into ferocious whisks. Sharp whistling sounds were heard in the air, as if they were breaking the void. Instantly, the wind and clouds began to surge, and the spiritual chi became extremely violent. Oh no, it's the Guyu horsetail whisk. Taoist Yundan's expression changed when he saw the horsetail whisks in Hong Yuan's and Hongyi's hands. The Guyu horsetail whisk is an important treasure of our Danding sect. It can flatten mountains and rivers and sweep away dust. Our ancestors have instructed us not to use these two horsetail whisks in the Danding sect. If we use these two horsetail whisks with our crossing calamity stage cultivation, it is very likely that the entire mountain range of our Danding sect will be destroyed. Do they really dare to do that? Taoist Yuan Hua's expression was grave. However, Hong Yuan and Hong Yi were under their control. At this moment, they only had the order to kill Mu Yu. They didn't care about the serious consequences of using these two horsetail whisks. Even if Taoist Yundan and Taoist Yuan Hua wanted to stop them, it was too late. Everyone back off, Taoist Yundan shouted. The two horsetail whisks in the air covered the sky, as if countless strands of dust had appeared in the sky. In an instant, dark clouds covered the sky, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. A pressure that made one's heart palpitate enveloped everyone. It was only when Taoist Yundan's loud shout woke them up that everyone panicked and retreated far away. Mu Yu, be careful. Don't take it head on. Taoist Yuan Hua shouted at Mu Yu. However, Mu Yu remained unmoved. Although he was only at the form synthesis stage, he didn't show any fear when facing Hong Yuan and Hong Yi. The Guyu horsetail whisk. It turns out that the Danding sect also has such a powerful treasure. Mu Yu stared at the strands of whisks that were falling from the sky. The strands of whisks had already blocked all his escape routes. There was no way for him to avoid them. Moreover, he couldn't retreat because if he did, the Guyu horsetail whisk would definitely hit Taoist Yundan and the others behind him. Hong Yi and Hong Yi didn't care about Taoist Yundan's life at all. Die brat, Taoist Hong Yuan shouted angrily. Then, the entire sky seemed to be pierced by countless flying needles. Countless strands of whisks came from all directions around Mu Yu. These strands of whisks intertwined with each other and separated from each other. The tip of each strand of whisks was suffused with a black light. The void seemed to be torn apart by these whisks and couldn't be mended. Swoosh! At the same time, 10 explosive pills shot toward Mu Yu from different directions. The speed of a cultivator at the crossing calamity stage was incomparably fast. Mu Yu's speed would be slower if he didn't borrow the power of slaughter. It was very difficult for him to dodge these 10 explosive pills. Boom, boom, boom. Taoist Hong Yuan and Hong Yi Taoist guided their own explosive pills at the same time. The explosive pill's power was equivalent to the full force of a cultivator at the crossing calamity stage. It couldn't be underestimated. The whisks of the Guyu horsetail whisk had already intertwined in the air. They wanted to thread Mu Yu through and pierce him full of holes. For a moment, an extremely terrifying fluctuation erupted in the sky above the Danding sect. A powerful aura swept out and rolled into a monstrous airwave. The entire Danding sect shook and violent spiritual energy splashed in all directions. The disciples of the Pill Cauldron sect below were all shocked by such a terrifying method. They retreated far away, not daring to get close to the battlefield. Fortunately, when Taoist Hong Yuan detonated the explosive pill, he was in the air. Otherwise, the disciples who were too close would definitely be affected and turned into ashes. Even so, many disciples couldn't stand still. They were sent flying and crashed into a ball. 2 cultivators at the crossing calamity stage attacked at the same time. Even if the alchemist's strength was low, it was still not something that these disciples could withstand. Everyone looked at the explosion point in the air in horror. Mu Yu was standing there just now. With Mu Yu's cultivation at the form synthesis stage, no one thought that he could survive such an explosion. Oof. This kid is dead meat. Sure, Deng Tian's face revealed an incomparably resentful expression. In his opinion, with the two elders at the crossing calamity stage, Hong Yuan and Hong Yi, there was no way that Mu Yu could survive such a powerful attack, no matter how heaven-defying his abilities were. The air was covered by countless waves of smoke and dust. No one could see clearly what was happening inside. However, the same thought appeared in everyone's mind. They were afraid that Mu Yu had been blasted into ashes by such a terrifying explosion. When Taoist Yundan and the others saw Mu Yu just now, they were full of hope for Mu Yu. However, when Mu Yu displayed his cultivation at the form synthesis stage, their hopes were instantly dashed. Although Mu Yu was an impeccable genius for being able to reach the form synthesis stage at such a young age, a cultivator at the form synthesis stage had no chance of winning against two elders at the crossing calamity stage. So he was defeated just like that? Taoist Yundan sighed. I thought that Mu Yu would be able to save everything. Sigh. That child is already very talented. He only lacks time. Taoist Yuan Hua shook his head. Everyone looked up at the sky. As the smoke and dust gradually dissipated, a figure was slowly revealed. Then, everyone's eyes suddenly widened. Mu Yu was holding a person in each hand. He stood indifferently in the air and looked coldly at Shi Dengtian, Qin Shange, Wan Shuiyao, and everyone else. Everyone was stunned in an instant. The two people who were held in Mu Yu's hands were Taoist Hong Yuan and Taoist Hong Yi, who were at the crossing calamity stage. How is this possible? Shi Dengtian cried out. He looked at Taoist Hong Yuan and Taoist Hong Yi in disbelief. He could not accept this fact. Was the person who killed his grandson really so powerful? Taoist Yundan and Taoist Yuan Hua were also stunned. They never expected that the one who fell in the explosion was not Mu Yu, but Taoist Hong Yuan and Taoist Hong Yi, who had higher cultivation levels. That's the Guyu horsetail whisk. How did he? Taoist Yuan Hua looked at the figure in the air in shock. Taoist Hong Yuan and Taoist Hong Yi were grabbed by the clothes on their chests. Incomparably powerful formation patterns were floating on their bodies. Their faces were full of pain, as if they had been tortured terribly. Taoist Yundan heaved a sigh of relief and said with a wry smile, "We all underestimated Mu Yu, just like we underestimated junior brother Kumu." His expression was a little gloomy, as if he had thought of something in the past. Then, he showed a relieved expression and looked at Mu Yu with eyes full of hope. The crossing calamity stage may be very powerful, but I'm a formation master. Mu Yu's body shook. Powerful formation patterns surged in the air. The 8 trigrams formation under his feet looked so mysterious. The aura of the 9th heavenly layer of the combination realm was fully displayed. He had already broken through to the 9th heavenly layer of the combination realm in the Kaisu cauldron. A Khanate formation master at the 9th heavenly layer of the combination realm was far more powerful than an alchemist at the 1st heavenly layer of the tribulation stage. Formation masters had the most explosive power among all cultivators. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.